I think all three are great candidates. I think all three are better candidates. This might be a hot take. I think all three are better candidates than Levitate last year. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Salt Mine. This is Season 5, Episode 7, and we are coming at you live with our, well, not live, we're coming at you pre-recorded with our spring 2025 All-Pro teams. It's my least favorite episode to edit, but one of my favorite to record, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a bunch of fun. We're going to go around. We're going to talk about all of our all-pro teams for the split. My name's Gordo. I'm joined by Slayer, TDS, and Quax this week as per usual. And let's start off by, let's chat about a little bit of ground rules here for how we've done these rankings. We talked about this a little bit off stream, off recording, whatever the f*** you want to say. And now...
I really want to just do this live.
Someday we'll do it live. I don't know, or we won't. We'll see. But anyway, first things first, I do want to talk about kind of our terms for this one. I want to say up front before this becomes relevant that this is not like a prospect tier list, right? This is our all-star teams for this split. So it's going to be isolated to this season of play and not necessarily be like a power ranking of players we think should make LTA. At least that's how I do my lists. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, same way.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
It's an important distinction to make because, you guys will see because we'll go to awards like most valuable prospect. I think some of us are going to lean like more prospect wise than maybe like an all pro team. But all pro teams are supposed to be, in my mind, like pulling from sports, like the best players of the season. So like that's the marker. So that's how I believe everyone else here has really approached it.
And then we also have rookie of the split and the most improved. So those are going to be our like outlier awards outside of the
role based rankings.
The role based rankings basically. So a lot of players to talk about. I'm looking forward to it, but not mutually exclusive, right? Like if you see a player, like chances are the MVP prospect is probably going to be the best in their role. We'll talk about when we get to MVP, but like I did my MVP as just like most valuable player because that's what the broadcast always ends up doing anyway, right? We gave one to Mir. It's like I'm kind of fully on board for just picking an MVP for the league. I think it's good anyway to have accomplishments and awards that are specifically just for this league. I think funneling everything upwards and being like NACL doesn't matter, only LTA matters, and then conversely being like LTA matters, LTA doesn't matter, only Worlds matters, and just feeding that up constantly, I think is a plague on our scene. So I'm going to definitely be happy to just give out awards for how people performed in this league. The other elephant in the room is the Dark Zero versus Light Zero rosters and how eligible those players are. I don't know about you guys. For me, I kind of drew the line, and I was like, the Dark Zero guys played just enough games to count to me, and the Light guys played just few enough games to not count for me. That's kind of where I drew my line. I think you can still
that's where I'm at.
Even if you can't necessarily give them awards, I do have a couple of players here on my notes that I will probably give like accolades to as like runner-ups or honorable mentions, or if they played more games, they probably could have made the top three. Because I think what was there was actually really promising for most of the players.
Oh yeah, I think they were great players.
It is just I agree with you. I think it is just sample size at the end of the day being too small relative to the rest of competition. I think that like if you look at our rankings of last season, obviously you had like AOE, who had like 50 bajillion rosters in the span of one regular season.
Well,
and
they
like,
made
the
it
thing
easier
about
by
that
being
team.
bad.
That didn't happen this split though, right? Like we had concrete teams.
And the thing about those teams,
that.
per usual, is none of those players are sniffing these lists anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
It's the.
I will say though, that's a good shout. And quickly, I just want to shout out like the light poles, wait, blank.
Keep them away from Pulse in your light zero,
the Pulse,
Dark Zero light.
But just quickly, I do want to shout out like the Pulse team because not only did they play out every like match from the tournament, something that doesn't happen from most bottom teams. But they actually perform well to a certain degree. So I
They
just want
actually
to shout
showed
them out
improvement.
because
They
for
did.
what their situation was, I think they deserve huge props. They played as best as they could, and I think they deserve a second chance in the future if they can keep improving. Just want to put that out there. I think it's fair with them.
Yeah.
No, they fought till the end. I respect that.
I want to give a little shout out to the community too. By the way, I think the community kind of held to its word, at least from what I see, held to its word a little bit on the Pulse guys. I have not seen much vitriol go the way of the players. I think the players have done a great job of just keeping their heads down, grinding their game, not getting involved with the politics of everything.
Bunch of them are playing solo queue
and
too,
I think
like
the community has rewarded them in turn. I think they have not.
Yeah.
Like, I think everyone's done this right. I think well, not everyone, but I think both parties that I'm talking about right now have done this right. I think the players,
there's certain general managers that make it a little bit harder for me to fully respect the team, but that's just like a stain on
nobody's going to respect the team, and it's like the players didn't, go in and try to change that, but they didn't let themselves become pawns in that whole game. And, they just kept their heads down. They played their best game, and I think they will be rewarded for it in the future, right? I think this has been a good thing for pretty much all of their stock.
Yeah. Yep. That being said,
it's time.
Let's kick this off because it's gonna. We could be here a while.
We could. All right, let's get into it. 6 minutes of pre-show ramble. Too much. We're going over the line. All right, let's start with top lane then. Let's get into our first, second, and third all-star teams. I think we should just go first team, second team, third team. We'll talk about each player as they come up, finish out a discussion on that player, say where we all have them ranked. And I will do my best to keep track of this over on the side.
Do we normally do third to first, or are we
did first to third last time? I think that worked.
I think first to third is more common.
I think the order.
I think that worked out better last time because otherwise it's like nobody wants to spoil their first team, so it leads to stupid.
But we kind of end up doing it anyway.
Yeah. I think it works better.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Let's get to it though.
Okay, all right. Let's get it. Quax, you want to start first with your first team All Pro top laner? Let's kick things off.
So.
Here comes the cakewalk.
Big fucking shocker today, boys. My first pro all team top laner is Zamudo. What? No way! Crazy.
No way.
Would have guessed that.
So I'm gonna start off by prefacing this, at least for me. Most of the roles I felt this split were really, really close. Like even the top three, I felt like you could obviously separate the top three teams as being like noticeably better than the other teams in NACL, but the same I feel could not be said for like the players individually. Like there are going to be players in my rankings at least that are on teams that aren't in the top three, and so that I feel should emphasize how close the rankings actually are. Except for this, Zamudo by far was the best top laner in the league. It wasn't close. If you go onto the stat sheet, he blows everybody out of the water. It's only a matter of time for this guy. Like, I know I am basically echoing what everyone else has said already, but like Yuji, this guy is next up. And I think that this is just another split where he gets to prove how good he is. My only hope is that he actually finds himself on a successful organization when he does make that jump, because everyone believes in this guy. And if you didn't before, this I think is the split to prove that. So Zamudo is my personal first all pro top laner.
So DSG next year.
Just get it across. To get across
don't
the
even
board.
joke about that shit, man.
All right,
just to get it across the board for formality's sake, we all have Zamudo, right? Because we like to go across the board. Like
I have
Zamudo.
Zamudo.
Each of us say our Zamudos. Okay. So.
Yeah, it's Zamudo. I don't think this is controversial or anything.
Yeah. I think this is the easiest start we could get.
It's by far the easiest and probably like
That's a good one. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only thing I would add to what Quax has said is I think the really interesting thing about Zamudo here is like if you really dig into the stats is like his GD at 15 is like 4 times higher than the next up.
Yeah.
but and he leads all tops in solo kills and stuff, but he also is second in KP and he leads all tops in damage percent. So this guy's like the best laning top laner while also being the most involved top laner in team fights. It's I don't know what to tell you.
It's kind of criminal how good he is.
Mind-blowing.
Like
he's just
like that. The average kills as well is fucking hilarious. So you've got like the second place solo like average kills top laner in the league is Fake God at 3.6 average. Zamudo is at 6 average, which is almost double. So it's just absolutely crazy how much of a jump I feel that this guy is compared to everyone else. And it's not even to say that I feel like our top pool is like bad or anything. In fact, I actually thought our top laners this split were pretty good. It's just Zamudo just feels that much better. Like watching him compared to everyone else, it like doesn't even look fair.
Yeah, the one thing I would add, I mean, that I just think is what really sells Zamudo to me as like a good top lane, like a great top lane prospect for LTA teams to look at. And I'm factoring out, you know, the reality of the limited spots, limited teams, like taking all that away for a second, right? Like Zamudo is also a player that is just so bred for fearless success and just matchup nightmare.
Like, dude, his gangplank.
Yeah, he plays all these. He has so many. You could go back to like when he was playing his early days with like Wild Card and some of these. Like he has so many picks in the bag. It's impossible to ban this guy out. He has these carry picks he can play in like late game fearless scenarios where he completely neutralizes. Like there's just so little right now in Zamudo's form that he can't do at the tier 2 level, and we're like this is just getting to UG levels of. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this guy. Just give him a shot and see if he can like continue at tier 1 because the guy's gonna do everything at tier 2 at this rate. Has done everything at tier 2.
I'll give a slight pushback on Quax's point about the top lane pool being strong.
I'm behind on that.
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, and I think I would almost never bring this up. And there's a lot of roles that have had some brain drain over the course of last split to this split. I think top lane gets it the worst. And I only bring this up because we are going to be like hyping Zamudo for LTA and stuff. So I would be remiss not to mention that it's like we have so much turnover in top lane this split. Like Philip's gone, Faisal's gone, Jenkins is gone, Tenacity is gone for most of the split. So if you were to grab me 6 months ago and be like, dude, Zamudo next split just absolutely clowns on Crimson, Denethor, Quacker, and a bunch of rookies, I would be like, yeah, you better. Like,
yeah, it's true.
Fake God is the one exception to that.
It's real competition in that sense. And
I guess
getting to with Zamudo, like I think he's the best, but I also think like the margin between him, the second, and then the way that the second, third, fourth, fifth, like kind of go between each other is like, to put it like this, the difference between first and second is way, way, way higher than the difference between second and third in my eyes. And that just like
for top lane, yes.
Yes, for top lane.
For top lane, yes, I agree.
Yeah,
I just think that
and
like
that's why I think Zamudo is really good. But the rest, I think the competition could have been a little bit better to really push the limits from Zamudo as well.
I agree. It would not surprise me if like after Fake God, or maybe even before Fake God, that like of the top 5 top laners in the region, like we may not have 3 of them in the league outside of LTA, right? Like, if you think about, like, Dokla, Philip, Faisal, Jenkins, like, these were the guys that were on our All-Pro teams last year. Not Dokla, of course, but he is also floating around.
I do think that's what makes it more interesting, though, at least for top lane, is because I expect our third...
Yeah, it's hard. You can't hold it against him either, really.
No. What I'm saying is I feel like there's going to be some variance, particularly in our third top lane MVP. Or our third top lane all pro for sure.
I think second even.
Let's get to second.
Second even.
Let's get to second. You want to kick us off, Quax? Just because you've been doing top lane?
Yeah, I can. So my second all pro top laner is Fake God.
Do we want to do it that we all say ours at once across the board, or if we have a contest? I forgot how we're doing.
Let's make a point to talk about Fake God as it reaches us. We can confirm or deny if Fake God's our second or whatever.
Right. Go ahead, Quax.
So
Sorry.
I chose Fake God simply because I feel like he is the only top laner that could actually contest with Zamudo. I think that what makes Fake God I think what makes Fake God really, really interesting is I kind of almost compare him to like the Philip of last year. Like Philip last year when he was on Fear was very good at accruing gold resources and constantly being useful, kind of like a Swiss Army knife top laner. I feel where you can kind of just use him in any situation, and he did it at his own volition, right? Like he didn't take up a bunch of pressure. He wasn't like play for top lane. He got a lot of the advantages that you saw, transition into the late game by himself, and I felt like that is something that I think is really cool. Similar to how we talked about Zamudo being a very lane dominant top laner who is also useful in team fights, I feel like Fake God has the same thing where when you put him on the Jace, when you put him on the Ambessa, he is really strong, but he doesn't get enough attention, or he doesn't get a ton of attention. And that's what makes him so special, is because he's still useful even if he's getting camped or he isn't getting jungle help or any of that stuff. Like he is still around, and I think that is what we saw from Philip last year. So I put Philip, I believe, at like either second or third. So I feel like it's only fair that I put Fake God here.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree on the. I think the only thing that he really has on Zamudo is that he is more like he doesn't get counterpick as frequently. He is one of the lowest counterpick rate top laners in the league. I think he is bottom two, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's like him and Denethor. And that's largely because he's like blinding Jace every game.
Yep.
But that's a cool piece to have on your roster, like somebody who could just confidently blind the Jace every single time and like won't squander it. Yeah, I mean, Fake God would be a big statistical standout in almost every category if Zamudo wasn't here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's an easy second. He's my second as well.
Yeah, he's also my second. The main point for me on this one was just like looking at who I considered like two and three, like the three candidates I was thinking about putting there. What really came down to me is just resource allocation. I really value top laners that, one, either weak side and don't give up huge leads, blinding or weak siding, or two, can manifest leads playing like carry as champs or bruisers without relying on super heavy jungle prio. And Fake God in every matchup except, sometimes against Zamuda, like we said, he's done a really good job in that aspect. So he's also my second team all-pro top laner.
TDS?
I think it's all fair. Mine is not Fake God though.
Really?
I deviated here. Yeah, because I do.
Is Fake God your third?
No, like I don't. Fake God is
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I say it's deviating for me. But like my reasoning for Fake God and why I didn't put him top three, I think he's top 4 100%. It's like, and you mentioned it. It's similar to Philip, where I think Philip was really good, but to me, if I was going to take a team and try and bring a top laner, Philip wouldn't be neither my first, second, or third option in that sense. And that's what I apply here with Fake God, which is not necessarily to me that he's bad or that he's not going to bring like something really important to your team. But I also feel like this split, he wasn't that impressive either when you really take into account like stat wise, he was doing really good. But I think that
I feel like that was his charm. Was that he wasn't?
No, like that's why I say like it's not against, like I don't think it's a bad thing for him to have, and I feel like previous splits would probably make me feel a little bit more confident in Fake God, especially because in previous splits, even when his team was behind or wasn't like doing great, you could always count on Fake God to do something that at the very least could be meaningful for the team. I think that this split, it kind of went more the way that, because Luminosity's way of play was just much better than 90% of the teams, then he could kind of just coast by. And I think that that's also one of the factors that influence his stats in a not in a bad way. Like he took great advantage of that. But like Luminosity just plays in a way that as quick as they get that one advantage, I think we talked about this last week in the previous episode. They get that one advantage and then they just steamroll you with that one advantage, even if the game is like even at 25. And I think that because of that sort of way of playing, he beneficiates quite a lot of that. But I feel like whenever I notice the ways that they end up losing a game or whenever they are affected, I feel like Philip is completely invisible in most of them. And even in some of the victories, he feels like he was there. So like that's why I just don't feel impressed enough to say that he was in my top 3 conversation. My number
So
2 is
who is
TF
your
Blade, by the
second?
way.
Number
Yeah,
two
that
is
was
TF
going to
Blade.
bring that up. TF Blade. So the reasoning for me in this is that this team is composed for what the top side was able to do in the early parts when it was team with Davalid and Bifrost. I think the bot lane was the most disappointing from them, and the top side was the most impressive from them. And for TF Blade's first split, going against multiple top laners that at the very least have a little bit more competitive experience, and him being able to deliver on quite a few variety of champions, I think he did not only a great job, but he was impactful in a lot of those games. I think if I'm not blanking, against Dark Zero, he was one of the main factors in them being able to find multiple team fight wins. The one pick on Crier, for example, on Gragas with against Syra. Like he played really well that series, and he's always trying to look for the plays. He falls victim a lot of the times. I will say he kind of goes into a coin, but I can count on him finding some plays that will determine victory for your team, and I value that a lot, especially on him being this being his rookie split. I think that was really important for me to really consider him higher up, and I was more impressed with that as well.
Yeah. I don't hate the TF Blade selection. I mean, I think you're bringing in some stuff beyond just like what happened on the Rift this season, as well, which is fine.
Which is
Yeah,
like,
as far as like what
Yeah,
team
I would say
construction
it's
looks
just a
like and where
different
TF Blade's
measure.
at in his career. So I think that's fair. TF Blade's an honorable mention for me. He just falls outside of my top 3. I do think it's like it's interesting in light of your criticisms of Fake God to me, just because I feel like TF Blade serves that role as well, where it's like Near Airport was a lot about double lift the same way that Luminosity was a lot about tactical,
But
and they're like their
if
fallback
you
in the
put it in
later game.
comparison, though,
What was that?
yeah, no, I agree with that. But if you put it in comparison, I think that you can make the argument that tactical played like tactical. I don't think double lift played like double lift at all.
That's fair.
If you compare it to how they played, right? I was expecting way more of double lift coming
That's
into
fair.
this split, and
My point is just I think both
that's
top
why I
laners
felt a little
sacrifice
bit
a
more.
fair bit of their carry
Yeah,
potential.
I agree with
TF
that.
Blade, it's like so in your face because he's like playing Scion and Gragas, and you're like, I thought this was TF Blade. What is going on?
Yeah.
But he fills that role quite nicely, and I think that kind of shift is what really turns Near Airport from a team that was getting shellacked by Supernova and Scrims to a team that finishes top 3 in the NACL.
Yeah, I think that's also another factor that I really like have liked about Near Airport is the rapid improvement in essentially every player.
Mm-hmm.
Like bar botlane. Once again, I think botlane is the one that has been the most stuck, but their team and their players have improved a lot just with the continuation of the split. And I think that also goes to how TF Blade has been able to play, because I think that at the start of it he was looking much more. He was still looking a little bit rough on the edges. I think now he's much better at identifying certain moments that can be more game defining for his team, and that's why he has been able to perform much better for me. I will say though, like one of the things that do take me away once again, it's that it's the same feeling that I had with Philip in the sense that I don't think he's a bad player. I think that he's probably one of the best players we're gonna have in top lane this split, and more than likely coming next split. But I just don't think that if I wanted to depend on someone to try and win you the game, I would go for Fake God in that sense, same as with Philip. And I think at the very least, TF Blade has shown me moments where I can see that being the case. If it was Fake God of previous splits, I would agree. I would totally change my mind. But this split, he just hasn't like looked the same to me in that sense.
Oh. I don't know, I think leaving him off is egregious. I think you seem a very similar Fake
I think
God.
it's fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think Fake got picked up right where he left off. I do think it's like a little different of a meta. Like I think the Aatrox, Renekton, and Gnar suit him better. Like he feels better on the Bruisers than like the Jace and the Ambessas of the world. But
he's a pretty good Jace.
I think he
feel
still
like
has
he's
a
always
really
played
good
the
split,
Jace
though.
really
Yeah,
well.
like I think
Yeah,
at this
his
I
level,
will say
Ambessa's
he's
good.
probably one of the few Jaces that can play Jace as comfortably and as he can in the top lane. Because like the other ones, I haven't been impressed at all. But he is at the very least is something that you can depend on.
He's speaking some Korean when he plays Chase. There's some English sometimes,
There's
but
a little in
there's
there.
some Korean, there's some Chinese. Yeah.
All right.
No,
Let's get to the
All right,
thard
so
team. Quax, I think
I
I know
wanna
what
know-
you got, but let's hear it.
Yeah, so my third all team is Hoarder. I felt like, so this was kind of like, TDS brought in his reasoning for Blade, and one of the reasonings was because like this is his rookie split, right? And that's like me for Hoarder. Like that contributes to my reasoning for putting Hoarder here. To me, what edges TF Blade out of top 3 and puts Hoarder in top 3 is I felt like Hoarder simply had more agency with conviction than TF Blade did with Near Airport. Like obviously I felt like Blade operated very nicely and in having that team's strong top side kind of be their main win condition. But for me, Hoarder like just wasn't necessarily the main win condition that Conviction were going for, and yet he kind of had the thing with Fake God that I said where he was still managing to pop off. Like in lane, I was really impressed with Hoarder. I felt like his laning was really good. I think maybe his team fighting is a little bit less than Fake God and definitely less than Zamudo. But I think as far as team fight top laners go, he still looked pretty good for his rookie split. I also like the diversity in champ pool that he actually brought on. He had his own little personal picks. The things like the Jax I thought were really fun to watch whenever he was able to whip that out. The Rumble is something that I enjoyed whenever he was able to whip that out. So he had his own flair. It's almost like if you combine the pool advantage of Zamudo and the laning of Blade, and you just kind of scale it into a middle, I feel like that's where he falls, and that's enough to be third for me. He definitely gives off like vibes of like what Levitate was last split, where everyone was super impressed with Levitate, not just because he was popping off, but because it was his rookie split when he was doing so.
Yeah, I think that's almost a disservice to Hoarder. I'm around on Hoarder. He's my third as well. Really impressed with him these last couple of weeks. I think it's like you like sit down, and the criticism with Hoarder is always like the ceiling has always been pretty apparent and pretty impressive, but it's like the bad games, right? Like when do the bad games come, and what do you do when he's when he doesn't win lane and he over aggresses for a solo kill or two and dies a couple of times, and he spends the whole game split pushing up too far.
He doesn't look at the map sometimes.
I know. The thing is, it's like he has a couple of those. Like that was always the story about him in tier 3, and what I certainly expected to see a bunch in tier 2. But frankly, like I don't know if he really has noticeably more of those than Crimson or Denethor or Quacker. Like, and these are the guys that are his competition, right? So TF Blade has a couple of them in there too. Stray seems to have them exclusively, and so I mean I think it's actually kind of clear. For me, it's almost kind of clearly Hoarder. I think he's. I tracked those MVPs again. I tracked MVP. I assigned an MVP for every game. The broadcast doesn't even do it anymore. They do it for the series. I tracked an MVP for every game, and Hoarder leads all top laners for me with 5 MVPs. I think that's because Zamudo has insane teammates, and there's some edge cases that I give to Spyrax or Yuji that don't go to Zamudo. Also, Zamudo played like half as many games. I'm sure he could have racked up a few more MVPs if he had played more games. But Hoarder leads all top laners for me with 5. I think that, along with what was all around a very solid season, not a lot to complain about, especially compared to the pool. All the things I said about top lane being weak on Zamudo apply here as well. So, it's not like I think Hoarder's the second coming or anything.
Wait, just in case, because if a Slayer has something different,
Slayer has something different. I can tell by the
just in case, I do have Hoarder as well.
Slayer's gonna put something spicy in here.
So just to add on quickly, I think Hoarder was one of the best surprises so far in top lane. He looked great.
So wait, you do have Hoarder, or you don't have Hoarder third?
No, I have Hoarder third. That's why I want to say before Slayer, because Slayer does look like something different.
And I
also just want to add something quickly.
I just like an MF who doesn't have Hoarder third team all pro.
Wait,
what are you guys talking about?
Let him cook. Slayer, who's your third?
I just want to add one last
thing about Hoarder
just before Slayer adds, because I know that it's going to be fun still watching Slayer. I think Hoarder would not be replaced. If I replaced anyone, it would be between TF Blade and Fake God. So here's a funny thing. I would not take Hoarder off the list
at all.
If I had Yes, exactly. If I had to change anything, it would be between those two, but Hoarder would stay 100% third because I think he had that much of a good first split to put him in this list. But it's still the three that I mentioned before. Now, Slayer can go. I want to see yours.
I mean, this is so close. I put Denethor.
Okay.
Okay, I thought maybe it was between Denethor and Crimson in my head for what you were
I
going to
really thought it was
I-
Crimson, actually.
I would be a little
I-
upset at Crimson, so I'll take Denethor.
No, Crimson did not meet the bar that I need to see from a sophomore split. Here's my logic for Denethor. I look at how we know Winthrop have to play when they win, and a lot of that is Wilson having to play for mid, Wilson having to play for bot a ton, mostly mid. I think he has to play for see their success. Denethor is, I guess my point I want to make here is I think Winthrop would have been like relegated if they didn't have Denethor on this team. Is what I'm trying to say. I think Denethor's value alone for Winthrop is so high up that he's my third all-pro top laner because you could throw him on a lot of champions. He obviously like adapted the meta. He played like some Cassante games. He didn't play a ton of Scion, which was very intriguing. He doesn't like play a lot of the Gragas, but his Jace games are so impeccable. And I just think outside of the guys we've already talked about on this team, like what he does with such limited resources in an isolated 1v1 matchup, he usually comes out with a lead. And it's hard to replicate and see that in stats like, Gordo's awesome tracking of like MVPs of a game or, just like the win totals because Winthrop's not winning a lot of games, right? So it's hard for him to like grab these sort of statistics. I just am really impressed by how Denethor approaches an isolated lane. And when I think about what I want the most out of my top laners, especially in this meta right now, I want you to be able to win on your own and like push the tempo, push the lead. I also, on the conversation of like Hoarder had like he can get caught pushing too far forward. I feel like it happened less to Denethor. There were definitely it happens to every top laner. I think it happened less to Denethor. I'm really impressed by his map awareness once you get out of the early game and his approach to like when he can go for these pushes on his Jace, when he has to back up, play a lot safer. So yeah, I also want to be a bit spicy because I think the rest of my list is kind of lame. So I want to give some credence to Denethor, who
That's fair.
I think he's just clearly the most valuable player on Winthrop. And Hoarder is my fourth. Like it was between Hoarder. It was between Hoarder and Denethor. I can respect Denethor. I can respect Hoarder choices. I just think like looking at his impact to the rest of their teams, like Hoarder was great, but I think that Conviction's bigger win cons lied game to game in some other players where I think like if Denethor was behind, like Winthrop was never winning a game.
Denethor definitely had like a sick like back third, like his
he was also
like his
all
last
of Winthrop had like a much better back third.
I
Like,
agree.
We were very
like
low
I think actually
better.
a lot of Winthrop players had kind of a sneaky good split. Like I think Swords in this category for me. I think Mobility did pretty well too. I think Only 35 had a solid debut.
I think they all did. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Is like I think they had a sneaky kind of solid split, and I think it gets a little masked because Wilson completely runs it like maybe a third of the time. I think
yeah.
I think a solid chunk of their games are just non-games because Wilson is getting gapped. So
that's what I'm saying about masking these Denethor leads, right? Like this is what happens. It's hard to like factor in a lot.
By the way,
here's
a way to use my silly MVP stats to do this. If you look at opponent Winthrop, it's like 3 times as many jungle MVPs against Winthrop as any other position. Like he's just handing those things out when he's on the other side.
Yeah, how often was it the opposing top? That's my question.
Twice.
Like when did you ever like twice? Okay,
once,
yeah.
and one of them is that decoy Malphite game where they just automatically won by picking Malphite.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who else you give MVP other than the Malphite when the Malphite auto wins you the game. Yeah, it's a decoy Malphite game, and it's the Hoarder Rise game against Winthrop. I give Hoarder the MVP.
Okay, fair enough.
He has a sick Rise that series.
I think Winthrop also gets benefited, and this isn't my like hater bias persona against Winthrop, which I have every split. I think it's more so the fact that because there were 2 like pretty stinker splits from both Blue Water and Supernova, that they are able to beneficiate from that as well. Because like if one of those two teams show up, I think we probably would be seeing less Winthrop than we were expecting, and it ends up working out for them. Also, I just want to quickly mention, for the amount of times that I've heard that Winthrop is mobility, Winthrop should be his Denethor. Yes, he has been
Winthrop
the
is
most.
Denethor.
He has been the better of the two for however much they have needed them.
For like 3 splits now, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So that's my little spicy. That's my little spicy throw out. I don't disagree with a lot of the Hoarder points, but Denethor made third team All Pro for me at top.
All right.
I'm glad that it was received somewhat well from you guys. I was
yeah.
scared that some of you were going to call me.
You're scared.
I really thought it was going to be Crimson, but I think they're actually
No, Crimson should not be on any All Pro teams this
I
this
agree.
level.
Crimson.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little disappointing split. All right, we can't talk that much about players not on our lists. Let's get on to jungle and move on to the second one. I guess I'll lead us off for this one. First team All Pro jungle for me. It's got to be Spica. I think Spica had a incredibly impressive year. I edge him out over Yuji because he played the full split. That's like my main reasoning here. I get it. Yuji was sick. I'll talk about Yuji when we get to him, but for now, Spica is my first.
I also have Spica here for the exact same logic as no matter how many All-Pro fucking splits we do, there's some point where I just magically agree with Gordo and look like I'm just copying his homework. So here we go. It happened again. I have Spica 1.
forward.
I have Yuji 1. I don't know. I think that Yuji, like, okay, so when I was doing statistics for the players for the teams, I kind of had like a ballpark blueprint of who I was going to be putting at top 3 and was going to find stats to sort of back up my reasoning or potentially change my reasoning. That actually happened a couple of times. Yuji, though, just reaffirmed to me that he's the best jungler. When I looked at the KDA of the junglers, this man had 16.5.
Didn't die much.
He is kind of a beast. And, like, I will say, I think Spica is definitely a close second for me. The reason he's second for me is because I simply feel like Yuji doesn't necessarily have as linear of a game. Like, I feel like Yuji can be used in a variety of different ways on Dark Zero, whereas Near Airport live and die by basically if Spica can be the guy pulling the strings early and then Pobelter can be the guy pulling the strings late. I felt like Near Airport never... I feel like Spica could have done more, or Near Airport could have done more with Spica, like what Dark Zero did with Yuji. Like, I felt like Yuji just had, like, multiple different games where he did multiple different kinds of styles and multiple different things, and I felt like that diversity was what at least put him over the edge for me over Spica. But again, Spica, to me, is second.
Yeah, I just think, like, you talked about earlier that I think, like, you didn't get the most out of the double lift bio bottom lane a lot of the times, and, like,
Yep.
I think the early game is what gave me the edge for Spica. I think there's a lot of games where, like, things get a little bit hectic top side and bot side, but there are, like, avenues for them to get exposed, but it doesn't matter because Spica is, like, looking at the enemy jungler's monitor, like, knowing where he's pathing and just, like, causing absolute chaos. Like, the way this guy, like, lifted them through a lot of these early games is mind-boggling to me. His pathing in, like, looking for invades, forcing vert jungles, priority on some of these, like, objectives, especially because we played the patch right where we used to have the double grubs where there was, like, very little time to be skill expressive as a jungler, and Spica was still finding ways to do it. That's what impressed to me. And it kind of goes back to the point I made with Denethor, where I'm like, how many more games do I feel like Near Airport lose if Spica isn't so on point in a lot of these series? Because I think for Dark Zero, before, like, they start swapping the roster, not like Yuji had stinkers, but, like, if there were some off games from Yuji, I'd still be confident Zamudo comes away with a big lead. Still be confident most games that Spyrax is in a great spot. Spica, was ever really shaky. I get really worried about Near Airport. So that's why Spica edged Yuji for me. And also the fact that Yuji didn't get to play a full split. Also, it was a factor for me, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm starting to realize. I think I'm like you guys are way lower on double lift this split than I am. That's just a note I'm coming away from because everybody's talking about double lift not showing up, and I agree he wasn't like LCS qualifying for Worlds double lift, but I feel like he was very good.
So I will add, I don't think it's only double lift. I think it was the bot lane in general.
I agree.
It's not only
I'm
kind of both of them.
All right, but here, wait, we haven't even heard TDS's first team jungler. Are you on what side of the fight are you on? Surely it's either Spica or Yuji.
So actually, it's neither. I'm surprised you guys disbelieve the Church of Lojas, the best jungler, the NACL, number one.
Bro.
I'm surprised you guys never believed in him. But I preface this with Juji is eliminated for me, not because like he's not the best. I would have put him number one if he played the whole split. But to me, if you're not going to play what's remaining of the split, then I kind of like. It takes away a little bit of the desire for me to put you number one. He would be number one in most cases, but it's Spica for me, and I agree. I think most of it's because he has one of the better understandings of how to destroy the enemy jungler in most situations that I've seen in most junglers this league. And the other one that goes really well at that, actually, so there are two players that really compete really well in that in that mindset are. Yuji and Darda. Not saying that those are my top three, but like those two are probably the other two junglers that really understand that mindset of how to just go and destroy the enemy jungler in a really effective manner. And I think that's why I put Speak Up above the other two positions. He would be below Yuji just because I think Yuji is the best. But Spica would be up there fighting for that just because of that way of just really destroying the pace of the game by just completely controlling what the enemy jungler will do and completely annihilating him. And I think with a team that is more not only coordinated but able to follow suit to more of what Spica wants to do, we probably would have seen a much more dominating potential with NA. I do think though that because it gets limited to top side being the one dominating it, and also because like sometimes you do get a coin in the top lane occasionally with TF late, it makes it so that it's a little bit harder for him to really just exploit them as much as possible. But if you put, for example, so to put it in context, if you put a Spica in Dark Zero's team, he would do something pretty similar to Juji in a really extremely dominating fashion. So I think that Spica needs probably with something more, you would see that even more apparently. But in NA, he does that similarly, and that's why I think that him and Juji are the two best junglers in the league. And without Juji, it's number one Spica.
That's fair.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so I come in with Yuji number two. I know we've talked a fair bit about Yuji already. The other aspect on top of what Slayer and I already said about Yuji didn't play that many games, I actually think this is like the first split where I would actually argue that the laners help Yuji more than the other way around. Like, I think
I can agree with that, actually.
Zamudo and Spyrax both lead their positions in solo kills. They both lead their positions in gold difference at 15. They're building up massive, huge lane advantages. Whereas, like, Yuji's kill participation and damage percent are actually some of the lowest of all junglers. So, like, that, to me, that really speaks to, that gives a statistical backing to what I already felt, which is that, like, a lot of the lanes are kind of winning on their own. Like, Yuji does not have to help Spyrax or Zamudo win.
Yeah.
And a lot of games kind of become non-games from how hard Spyrax and Zamudo are winning. So, the other weird thing about Yuji when you look at the whole season, at least the portions that he played, is that he also doesn't really... I don't think this is a criticism of Yuji so much as it is representative, again, of the laners being the big threats this year. Is that Yuji doesn't draw like bans the way that other junglers do. If you look at Dark Zero drafts with Yuji in the lineup, it's like most every other team in the league is drawing some assortment of Naafiri, Vi, or Maokai bans when they are on blue side. And Dark Zero does not. Dark Zero, people are worried about other things. They're worried about the Ryze. They're worried about the Jace. They're worried about the Gwen. And they tend to dedicate more bans to the lanes and fewer to the jungle. So, Yuji's getting his pick of whatever champion in the game he wants on these blue side games. And again, it's like, it's not like he's doing anything wrong. It's just his lanes start winning automatically, and he's just along for the ride. He's like Vakin brought up on ACL last split, where he's like, and this with the same players, by the way. Vakin was saying this about having Zamudo as his lane. He's just like, yeah, I mean, everyone's just winning on their own, so I can go around and do whatever I want. And it feels like Yuji's riding that bus for a little bit of this split. And, that bus only takes you to second team All-Pro when you only play half the season for me.
Yeah, it's very well.
Yeah.
Slayer, I assume you have Yuji second, yeah?
Yeah.
And
I do.
so TDS, who do you have second? Because we're through Yuji and Spica.
So in this case, I feel like going on standing orders, it's kind of like.
So this would be your third if Yuji was allowed for you, because you DQ'd
Yeah,
Yuji.
and it would be Tomio.
Okay.
Tomio. So the thing with Tomio for me is that he plays a role completely opposite to what Speak and Yuji does.
Yes.
But like he's a victim. He's a complete victim of the Luminosity way of playing. Where if Luminosity, Luminosity depends really heavily on Tomio playing this way. Because if he doesn't play this way, like I feel Luminosity falls apart a little bit. He needs to be an enabler in a lot of ways to be able to allow for the mid lane and bot lane to really excel at what they want to do. But the Luminosity playstyle pretty much depends on Tomio not being a liability first of all, and also just consistently finding ways of making himself be valuable for the rest of the team. And he does a really good job at that. That's why I think that if you compare the styles of play from junglers, like you have Spica, Yuji on this side, and then you have Tomio on this side. I don't want to say herbivore because I feel like most of the time people say like that's the herbivore, and then you have the carnivore.
I feel like the herbivore is like Lilia, right? It's like hard farm now.
Yeah, but I don't think that's Tomio either. Like
no,
he's not really just the farmer. He's just like he plays for the team in a way that he will make it so that the team will always find value in some manner.
He's enabling, yeah.
Probably enabler is the best way to put it. But he also plays in the way that I think Yuji and Spica does, but not aggressively, but more so like neutrally. Like he's not really on your face. He's not destroying you consistently. He's not like jumping your face and trying to steal from you, but he's reading you in a way that he waits for the right time and then he attacks. And I think that that's a smart approach to the game and enables Luminosity really effectively. Like if he just gets the way that the game goes, a 0-0 at 30 minutes, him out-reading you and just giving extra small bits of advantage for Luminosity as much as possible. That's the sort of game that I see Tomio play, and that's why I think he's really high up in junglers, but just not enough to inch him above Speak and Yuji.
Okay.
Yeah, I leave Tomio off my list intentionally, and I
also have him off my list.
Yeah, I think I don't know that I agree that he plays this style because that's what Luminosity needs. I think this is just Tomio's style because he played this way on Disguised, and he played this way on Cloud9 Challengers, and he played this way on Evil Geniuses Challengers.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, like I think this is just kind of who Tomio is at this stage, and it was kind of a criticism I had of him at the time, is that it doesn't feel like he can kind of kick into gear and play a higher econ style, and I also like for how stacked this team is. I find even like from a supportive jungle execution perspective, as the Skarner Sejuani guy, I find that his Skarner Sejuani are not like particularly more impressive to me than like the Skarner Sejuani that you see out of Spica or out of Dardoch or something like that. Like when they do play them. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm a little out on Tomio after this split. I think he just kind of is who I thought he was in the preseason. I'm like, you're rooting for everybody. You want to see him like take this step up and be like the next big jungler. I just don't, I'm kind of out on it now. And I've been out on it for a while, so this split just doesn't really convince me otherwise.
I will say though, I kind of want to ask this question with Tomio here.
Sure.
Do you think Luminosity would be better bar obviously Yuji and Spica? Do you think Luminosity is better with any other jungler than Tomio?
I think they would be better with a Spica, a Yuji, a Dardoch. Like, I think they would be better with any of those guys.
Taking off Yuji and Spica, which are obviously the best. Like,
I think they'd be better off.
I think they'd be better
off with Dardoch and possibly Kisno.
Okay, fair.
I want to answer that question with my third pick.
Go ahead.
Are we moving to third? Are we moving to third team?
Yeah,
Junglers
We've
now,
done
or-
second team. Everybody else has
Yeah,
Yuji,
technically,
Yuji Spica in
this
some
would
order.
be second. So yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah. So who's third?
I think my 1 through 3 are clear, and there's a drop. Well, I think there's a slight drop. I think my third is clearly Kisno. I think Kisno is clearly my third team jungler.
Okay.
A lot of the things that I talked about with, I think it's a great point to tie into Gordo what you're talking about, how Yuji, like, in this split, didn't have to, like, could rely on his laners getting a lot of success. But in prior splits, we talked about how Yuji was such a menace because you knew he could pick, like, facilitating, carry, power farming, like, and still have success. That's what I've seen from Kisno for Conviction. I think Kisno has been a jack of all trades and the most important player for Conviction success. You just like look across the board at like the unique amount of champions that he's been able to play. Like he's tapped into like the Nefiri tech and carried some games. I will always remember the game 2 he had against Supernova where he got to play his Kingdred and like mollywopped them, was so far ahead. This game wasn't close because he outranged everybody. Ends up with like 11 kills. I think he becomes the MVP of that series too after he played a really good Vi game. It's I think this is such a fun meta for Kisno because he can play the facilitators like Skarner, Sejuani, Vi are all still in this meta, but then you could go to the Zyra and have these big moments. He could still play his Kingdred, have these big moments. He's really been a fan of the Pantheon and gotten some big wins behind that pick, along with the Nefiri I mentioned. I am very impressed how Kisno has been able to play some of those more power farming, carry-oriented picks and find wins for Conviction, with laners that, like, no disrespect to these Conviction guys, but, like, for Tomio example, like, the guy's got Insanity sitting in the mid lane and Fake God sitting topside, right? Like, with Azazel bottom lane. Like there's levels to this, and Kisno's teammates are not on the same level as that Luminosity team. So all that combined, I was very impressed by Kisno's split. Glad to see that the boot camps translated to what I would say is his most successful single split in the NACL so far for him, and he's my third team jungler. And I also think that to answer that question before with Luminosity, I think Kisno would have a lot of success with Luminosity because he could play whatever crazy carry-oriented jungler he wanted and not have to worry about his lanes falling behind because, again, he's playing with those Luminosity lanes. So,
yeah.
That's fair. I think... Oh, you can go first, Quax.
Well, so I was just going to tell my third All-Pro.
Go ahead.
I was just going to put it out of the way here that it's Tomio. I kind of subscribed to TDS's reasoning. But I want to kind of take it a little bit of a step further. I think that Luminosity really operated well off of objectives. Like they had like a domino effect with a lot of neutrals where they would essentially take one, take another, and they would kind of use that momentum to propel them forward to the next place as a team. And I felt like that was led by Tomio. I felt like Tomio was the opposite. Very much like what TDS said, it was very much the opposite of Spica, wherein that Spica was the guy that would constantly be making things happen in the early game around the jungle, right? Tracking, making sure he's invading, just putting pressure on the opposition. It would be Tomio putting pressure on the lanes. And I think that one way they did this was like, you can look at it. I think Tomio's best performing jungler this season so far was the Pantheon. I think that he had a lot of really good standout performances on the pick, and a big proponent of the Pantheon in the jungle is that he's got that global ult, right? He can be there when you need him, and I felt like Tomio, when given the opportunity to have that ability at his fingertips, made the most of it, at least compared to every other jungler. Like I felt like his Pantheon was the best of everybody else. I will say Kisno and Dardoch were extremely close to getting number 3. Like I was, as the jungler myself, I was wrestling with these guys for a good 20 to 30 minutes. But I ultimately just decided on Tomio because it felt like that he was the selfless guy. He was making plays happen and kind of sacking his own resources. But it may not be pretty, but it's effective. So.
Never pretty.
Who do you have, TDS? I'll round us out at the last.
So obviously, since my list is a little bit moved, it is Kisno as well. I think one of the players that I've liked watching the most playing jungle so far. I think between him and Dardoch was quite close as well. Like it was really enjoyable, but I 100% think Kisno just edges him out a little bit because not only is he able to impact the game, like you were mentioning before, but also I feel like he barely gets his ass kicked comparatively to other junglers. Like I think that his way of playing is kind of interesting because I think that he is kind of a jungler that should be feast or famine. Either he goes all in and destroys you or gets destroyed in the process. But it never really is like that with Kisno. He does a really good job at kind of trying to destroy you, but he's never really destroyed. He just plays it out really comfortably. Either he tries and finds something for the team to make it work out, or he fails, but it's never to a point that he will be a non-factor compared to other junglers in the league. So I really think that he's up there competing with for potentially being one of the better junglers. I think without Juji, he will have a much better chance at that. Probably not speak a level, but I can see him fighting against Tomio. I agree. I do think though that if the list was moved, he would be outside of the top three because Yuji's not here. But he has been quite impressive for me in some of these occasions and victories for conviction.
I'm going to make good on the lip service that I think everybody is given when they pick Kisno, in that I chose Dardog over Kisno for my third. Kisno is my honorable mention. I agree. It's super, super close between Kisno and Dardog. I think where I come down is like, if we're like Madden rating these guys, I think it's like 0 through 100, 0 through 99.
Yeah.
I think they're separated by like decimals, at least as far as performance this split goes. I think their performance level is very, very close. What I tiebreak on is like strength of teammate this split. I think Dardoch is the engine that lets CCG get into positions to win. I think Dardoch is directly responsible for more wins this split than Kisno. In that, like he gets CCG rolling early, and they can sometimes like just run away with those games and close them out. And from watching games where that doesn't happen, you can get like a confident vibe that sometimes CCG, it's important that they don't go to like 35 minutes, because when they do, they can make mistakes and play a less clean game. And so like the fact that Dardoch gets them over that finish line early saves them some heartache in that area of their game. And like, you look at conviction games again, I'm doing this MVP tracker that helps me out with these. Is I think Conviction and therefore Kisno have a lot more games where you're like, Hoarder's popping off on the Olaf or the Gwen or the Ambessa or the Nidalee or the Rise. Or Dark Wings is having a crazy Hui game or something. Like, I think there's more of those examples on Conviction than there are to be had on CCG. So I just think, it comes, it's just like number of games won for your team diff. Not to say that I don't think Kisno could have, filled a role like that on a team where he needed to. Although I don't know for sure. I haven't exactly seen it from him. He's still relatively new to the scene. But I think that, looking at this split in a vacuum, I tiebreak it to Dardoch for that reason.
Yeah, I can accept that. I also do think that Dardoch is a much more integral voice in the comms for CCG.
I assume that. I do not know that.
But it's and that's why I didn't want to like let it affect my ranking, because we're really going off assumption. At least we're not going off full assumption, knowing that we got to talk to Josh. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, on the Kisno side, we have no clue. So,
all right. Well, let's get over to mid lane. Slayer, you want to start us off in mid?
Yeah, sure. I am going to give this first team All-Pro to, I think, was the most reliable and most pop-off performer for near airport. Pobelter is my first team mid laner. I think Pobelter was head and shoulders the most consistent player. And it's going to be hard, like we talked about, when it comes to near airport, to like kind of what Gordo alluded to earlier with like the double lift conversation of like, oh, double lift wasn't like world's qualifying double lift. If we're going to like run with those comparisons a little bit to have a little bit of fun, I think the player that was closest to their form after Spica compared to like, the player that was most closest to their pro form that isn't the young gun Spica, like has had a lot of times since they played pro, was Pobelter to me. I think he was really big. He also had some like highlight level moments to end a lot of these close games for near airport, and it was just so cool. I'm pulling like the uncard a bit with this one, just like getting to watch this guy like go back to some of these like pole belter-esque picks and really dominate is
Makes
big.
you feel like a kid
And
again.
yeah, exactly. The one thing that I know is going to be a big point that we talked
He
about
did win
with
10
these
years ago, just by the way. He did win 10
he
years
did.
ago.
The one point that's going to be interesting that I am sad did not happen due to the Dark Zero switch ups is that we never actually got to see Spyrex pole belter,
Yep.
which is really unfortunate because that really would have, I think, impacted my rankings. Not to spoil future, but hey, when he went against Toasty, that wasn't too close. I think he really outmatched in that series. So
Yeah.
I think pole belter deservedly should be the first team All Pro mid laner. But I know there are some caveats with the Dark Zero stuff. So for me, pole belter is a first team All Pro in the Tier 2 level of North America League of Legends in 2025. That is a hilarious sentence to say out loud, but it's real.
Huh?
Yeah, but it just makes sense. Like I was confident the Vulture would be like number one as soon as they announced the
Really?
roster. Yeah, no, like I'm pretty sure if we go back to that like first episode, I was one of the few that said that Vulture was going to be the best mid laner.
I think
So
And do
and
you
I
do you exit the split with that opinion? Do you have Pobelter first?
yeah, I'm still number one Vulture. Like I would even take it
Yeah.
a step further, but like leave that for later. Because I think Powelter not only has he been the best mid laner, but I think that once again, putting it into context, I think NA is not where they are if not for Powelter. Because
Yeah.
even with the speed being really good, he cannot be the only sole like carry of the team, and you need to have a duo. The fact that they have the strongest, probably the strongest mid jungle duo now left, thanks to the fact that Yuji is no longer here as well, it's quite crucial when looking into playoffs because that's almost always the main differentiating factor to try and win you the league, or at the very least fight for the league. It's having one of the strongest mid jungle duo, and near airport do have it. I'm kind of curious in seeing how much will they try and attack Povelture going forward though, because I feel like the more it happens, the more any feels that or teams just try and threat the rest of the map and they try and see if they can pigeonhole or hold Povelture to a certain point where he doesn't really have a huge impact later on in the game. But I just think that his impact has been quite big. I don't think I've seen him lose a lane yet. Not like in any of the games. I don't think he has lost a game at a lane yet, for as far as I remember. And then I just feel like if NA is going to win this, it's going to be on the back of Paul Vulture and Speak 100%. So it's kind of difficult for me to say anything else than he's the best mid laner.
Yeah. I am also in the Povelter is the best mid laner. I think that there's definitely a yin and yang with Spica and Povelter. Like, I think that Spica is really good at taking control of the game early, and Povelter just kind of. I think Povelter has the most CS of all the mid laners. Like, he CS is the best out of all of them. So he accrues resources really efficiently in laning phase, and then is just a monster later on, right? Like most mid laners you see, they have stuff like the Tristana, the Yone, some of these more aggressive picks are in their wheelhouse. Pobelter does have the Yone, but other than that, it's all mages, right? Victor,
Yeah.
Azir,
Merchant.
some Talia. Like this guy is a late game mage merchant, and mages ever since the Roa and the Seraphs and all of those items have been getting continuously buffed. It's good for him not only like to get to the top spot, but they're not getting nerfed for the foreseeable future. So maybe a bit of a buff for Pobelter going into playoffs. And I think that'll be really valuable for near airport going forward, and propelling that best mid jungle duo now that UG is gone, like TDS said, further in the coming weeks.
Yeah. On that note, I mean it does suck a little bit to have this be like the Samikin champ pool split and have both Pobelter and Darkwings out here just doing Samikin's job better than him. I'm sorry, Samikin.
Man.
Maybe next split, brother.
Just...
Maybe he really started to turn it on towards the end there, but
Blue Water tried at the end.
At the end, they turned it on just a little too late, and the Winthrop upset over near airport did him in. I guess I'm the odd one out here, by the way. I have Pobelter number 2. I put Spyrax first. I was really, really impressed by Spyrax. He really brought the Rise into focus for the whole league. Like, he was a week or two ahead on that. pick once it started getting really good with the Roa changes. If I'm
ahead
not
of the
mistaken, I think he
LPL.
was even playing it a week before the Roa changes, and was really turbo carrying games on it. Clearly his best laning split ever. Like, Spyrax is a player that I have frequently criticized on his laning. And yeah, he's up against a softer pool, right? There's like 5 rookies in this league, but he does really, really, really good this split. I was plenty happy with him. And yeah, I just edge him out over Pobelter there, obviously. He plays far fewer games than Pobelter. He doesn't play against Pobelter.
We're doing a lot of edging out this episode. Jesus Christ.
We are. It's close. It's close. Like, there's like 3 teams that are, less than a game apart. All right, we can do a little bit.
Oh, Gordo, you sweet innocent soul. Anyway,
Quax, I know what you're trying to.
I got it, but
yeah,
I'm gonna stand by it, dude. We got.
all right.
Well, I guess I could roll us into the second team mids because I do also I do have Spyrax here. I do not ding him enough for being for missing a couple of games.
Yeah, I'm also there. By the way,
I would have argued if they'd matched up and Spyrax had beat Pobelter out, I would have put Spyrax 1.
Yeah.
I was really hinging on like the fact that we didn't get to see that matchup.
If they handed me the answer on a silver platter, I would.
I would
accept
that.
I think that Spyrax as well. Like, this is something that I wrote down in my notes. So it feels like all of the players on Dark Zero have like a very clear job, right? Where you can kind of put them in their own little boxes about like when they perform best relative to the game state of like timing wise. And I compared it to, you guys know that one scene in like the first Avengers where Cap is like telling them all the things that they need to do in order to save the city from the aliens, and then he just turns to Hulk and he says, "Smash."
Hulk,
I feel like that was probably Clerky or Niles to Spyrax, because this man just like he's just told to go buck fucking wild in the laning phase, lay down the damage, and essentially be like a giant cannon for the team. Like, I feel like he has the most fun job of all of the Dark Zero players, but it's also extremely straightforward. Like, he doesn't have to do anything too crazy, but he lays down the firepower. So it's always fun to watch him play.
I feel like this comes with the fact that they did change team members. Because I feel like if you compare it to last year, his role wasn't the carry guy, right? It was more so just you can be there and you can have fun, but you don't need to have too much fun because Scary can carry us and he can carry us. And I think that kind of dynamic did, I think, change a little bit of the mindset with both Samudo and Spyrax. Not saying that they didn't do it before, but I feel like it was just pushed a little bit farther so that it can alleviate some of the quote unquote pressure on Syed, which I think it's a smart way to approach it, right? Like, first time for a first new member for the team in a while, you try and change some of the things up so that it can be easier for him, and also that way you can also showcase your players in a much better manner, which I think it's always smart to try and do. So agree, I think Spyrax taking a much more aggressive approach in the split. I actually think like watching Spyrax this split reminded me of his debut game when he played that one time for FlyQuest. I think he played similarly to that. The problem is that at that time he was playing LCS, right? So the difference in levels do impact the way that you perceive the player. But I feel like he played pretty similar. He has been playing pretty similar to that, and with confidence to back that up, he's going to show up really greatly. The problem is that I think Pobelter is just simply better, sadly.
Yeah, Pobelter just looked better. I agree.
Like Pobelter has looked better, and also to me, you can take out Spyrax from Dark Zero team. Not put anyone, obviously, but if you put Toasty in, Dark Zero still looks probably unbeatable. Once again, if you do that with near airport, I don't get the same sense. So that's why I inch Pobelter a little bit higher. But this competition, particularly to me, was closer than trying to look for the third place, because the third place, I think it was kind of obvious. I was even considering third place going down on him and moving someone up, because I feel like top 5 are the clear top 5, and top or bottom 5 are clear bottom 5 as well.
I might even take it up to a top 4. But I think we're all, so it's like a Spyrax sweep at 2, except for me, who is Pobelter.
Yeah,
makes sense. Let's get to third then. Slayer, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I do think as fun as mid lane was and is for the future, with how much switch up we saw around here, I wanted to get spicy, but I do think just the floor of these three guys that was met, that it was hard to really push them out of all-pro teams. So my third is Insanity. I think it's really hard pressed to argue anybody can come out on top of him right now. And there were early was a bit rough. I thought Luminosity's like first series loss, like Insanity was. We'll put it nicely. Let's say limit testing some of his fight positionings. But once like Luminosity got the like rust off of having so much time, not really having to play any competitive games, it was just classic Insanity, and it was just fun to see him like play a different champ pool than anybody else and still have a very successful split for Luminosity, consistently finding himself big leads in the mid lane, coming out of lane, and then once that team is rolling on all cylinders, Insanity is a big part of that. So it's hard to really knock him down out of an all-pro team. As much fun as some of these other mid laners that I'm sure we'll talk about once we get back to next split, and maybe even in some of these other awards we'll mention some other mid laners, don't want to spoil, but it's hard to keep the three of Pole Belter, Spyrex, and Insanity out. I also think that if you really wanted to get nitty-gritty, you could have really I would have accepted any three of these guys at any three of these positions in the mid lane all-pro teams. Just this is how it really shakes out for me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was actually considering like putting Insanity down by that reasoning as well. Like I was thinking about trying to put someone third over Insanity.
Same.
My pick though.
Tried.
So my pick was originally going to be Aljun, but at the same time, like I just
Wow.
Yeah, like because this is something we're going to talk about in the future as well, in one of the categories. But like, it's just that I felt so underwhelmed with Insanity because coming into the split,
we thought
he was the clear number one mid laner for a lot of people. Not me, but for a lot of people, he was the clear number one. And like his split was just, I was left. There was a lot left to be desired. I really like. At the very least, I was expecting to see the Insanity that was destroying everyone before being called up to the LCS. Like before he actually had his opportunity to do a breakout split. I was expecting that, and it was underwhelming, sadly. But he still is there.
I'm in that same boat. Like I really was trying to find an excuse to put another person in third because I felt like Insanity, relative to what we were expecting from the guy at the start of the split, which was best mid laner, blows everybody out of the water. This is Insanity. Everyone loves and knows this guy. We didn't really get that. Like I thought that there were also like a lot of other mid laners that could have potentially taken the spot. Or I will say, if I were to put anyone else in third place, it would have been because they not necessarily had the best split, but had a good split and show promise and upswing going forward. Like some of them, such as Aljun, Dark Wings, and hell, if he played more games, I seriously and performed like he did, I would have loved to have put Toasty here because the games that we did see from him were actually pretty damn good. But yeah, like it's just like they seemed like they were getting within like eye shot of Insanity's average performance from time to time. But yeah, I mean it's too hard. I think the jump is too big. So
you need to be a little bit more.
Insanity begrudgingly for me goes third.
And I'm willing to speculate a bit here that I think we're going to have a monster Insanity playoffs because I do think he was, I'm not saying for funning of the regular season, but I think he was like having a bit of fun doing like classic Insanity things. Like, and that's why I also I'm fine with him being 3 here because like we got like he has the widest champ pool of any of the mid laners this split because he has wins on like he played like the Anivia, he got a Zed game in there, absolutely styled on it. He played Cassiopeia, it was disgusting against Winthrop, it was really like good on top of all the classic like meta picks that you're gonna see. So I'm willing to predict that Insanity, like not that he wasn't somewhat like there to compete, but I think like we're getting locked in Insanity for the playoffs, and it could be scary.
Yeah, I share like I'm begrudgingly on Insanity here, which I feel like we're just dumping on the guy at his own.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Like
he got third. Okay.
Yeah, like he deserves the third. He's the third best mid, I think, pretty clearly. To Pobelter and Spyrex, who are top 2. And yeah, I mean, like I want to put Darkwings in here, but there's no real reason to put Darkwings up here other than because Insanity's played in the LCS before and had been here and had these splits before, and we're hardwired to want to pick talent that hasn't gotten a shot at tier 1 yet. But I mean, like there's no real argument, I think, to have Darkwings over Insanity. I just don't think. I don't think there's a legitimate way to argue for it.
Yeah, at least for now. If he had entered a couple more games, maybe, but not the case here.
I will say, for honorable mention's sake, the person that I was trying to argue to put in front of Insanity was Darkwings.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I was very
3 Dark
pleased by
Wings. I think it's 3 Darkwings. One. I was the only one with Aljun. But
yeah, I would have put Aljun 5 too, if that's worth any.
Yeah, like to me, it was a clear top 5. By the way, like those are top 5, and then the bottom 5 are pretty clear as well in my eyes.
Yeah,
I think for me it was like For me it's like.
I think Sword
top
6
3.
actually. I think Sword could be firmly number 6.
For me,
yeah,
it's
but like that's why I think like there's
listed,
a clear bottom 6 and there's a clear top 5. Like from Aljun upwards and then from Sword downwards. I think you can. It's pretty.
I just think after Sword it gets muddy, right? Like who? Phi Mini versus Adam or whatever.
I tiered it like 4 ways. I had the 3 we've already mentioned above, and then I had Darkwings, Aljun in their own little pocket, and then Sword in their own little pocket, and then the field.
Yeah, I would agree.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
All right. Let's get into bot lanes. TDS, you want to kick us off for bot lane?
Yeah, I think it's fair. The bot lane was a funny thing because I think that you could make an argument for a lot of the players in the same way that you can make an argument against a lot of the players.
Mm-hmm.
I think bot lane was kind of funny. So for AD carry number 1, to me, I think I'm going to edge Sajid just because I think that he got a really good first split with Dark Zero. It's not so I do think it's not Scary Jerry level yet, but I do think that he made it so that at the very least it wasn't as noticeable, which is a really important thing to do when you're trying to replace a member, is at the very least hide the fact that there's no longer that member that was really, really good. And I think Sayed did a really good job. He played consistently well. He carried a couple of games. I think he played to the level that I was expecting. The only thing that I'm still like lacking a little bit in Sayed has to be his laning phase. I'm still a little bit not fully convinced on his laning phase, though.
I mean,
that's the only thing.
I will say I kind of disagree with your point a little bit though on Sajid, where it's like he fits in to the role that Scary Jerry had when he was on Maraville, and I think that they are 2 extremely different AD carries. Like I think that all of Maraville, Dark Zero, Dragonsteel were kind of forced to adapt around Sajid being much more team fight prone, and that's why we're seeing a lot more, I would say, lane action from Spirax, from Zamudo, right? Like we're talking about how these solo laners are taking over in the early game, probably to make up for the fact that Sajid isn't necessarily, as I agree with you, strong of a contender in the laning phase. His real glamour comes in the team fighting, and I think that what makes Sajid head and shoulders my number 1 AD carry, because I'm with you, TDS. I think everyone here is, right. Like I would hope.
I do not have Sajid first.
Really?
I do have Sajid.
Okay, so we have 3 Sajid firsts. So. But, like, I think another thing is that he can play 80 carries that you wouldn't normally expect to be, like, amazing team fighters and still team fight well with them. Like, the Lucian, for example, I don't think Lucian is, like, the best team fight ADC in the entire game, but he's, like, demolishing people on it. Like, his Lucian is absolutely crisp. Every time he whips that one out, I'm extremely happy to witness whatever he's gonna do, because it definitely is magic. So I think that Sajid isn't. I mean, when comparing him to Jerry, I actually think that he is on the level of Jerry, to be honest with you. Like, I felt like even when Sajid was on Fly Challengers, on an objectively worse team in summer, at least, not spring, maybe. But like in summer, he was still able to contend with Jerry. And now he's on this team that is extremely good, right? He's on the winning team that has the winning formula. And he is performing just as well, if not better. So honestly, like, switch him out for Jerry. It's a different style, but the caliber of play, I wouldn't be so quick to say it's better or worse than Scary Jerry.
Yeah, quickly to throw out
right.
my point before Gordo, you
Sure.
take it with whoever you have number one. I think Sajed is on track to be Scary Jerry soon. I think he's on course. I don't know in every aspect that I put him on the same level as Scary Jerry, because again, they are just almost polar opposite AD carry players in so many ways, like champ pool, play style. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be a Sajed fan forever because as like the AD carry player that sits on this desk, like I grew up loving those flashy team fights. Like I can close my eyes and picture. Well, not all good Lucian double lift TSM gameplays, but the one that comes first is the obvious one that we're all thinking of. Like the impact you can have as a team fight to carry, it's so much more fun to watch. And Sajed like fits that bill. That's what like really drew me to him in the first place with those like Fly Challengers Vayne games. My issue with like Sajed is like honestly like an 80 carry role issue where in the it's like I guess I'm going on the 80 carry rant a little bit here. Like there are scenarios where it just doesn't matter like what
Classic.
you've done. But I feel like we all agree this to a certain extent. Maybe I'm overhyping it, but there are scenarios where like game states where it doesn't matter like where you're at as an 80 carry. Like you rely on a lot of things. I think that is where the meta was at. Like with the Misfortune. Like that's why I don't like watching Misfortune because I think you could get the lane prio on Misfortune. You get fed like, hey, this is cool. I went 3 damage items. Oh, if you don't like your teammate doesn't say you went for a bullet time, like none of this fucking matters. That's why I hate watching Misfortune in pro. But tangent aside, I think Sajed is progressing well. I think he is by far head and shoulders the best team fighting AD carry in NACL, and with so many close games, especially coming in the playoffs, like. Being that good, having that good of clicks in team fights on this type of team can really push them over the edge, even if we're getting a different Dark Zero roster.
His spacing is insane. Like his,
I'm glad
you brought up the clicks. This guy like dances the line in team fights. Like he'll sometimes be one of the people to engage the fight. Like he will be on the front lines as an AD carry, and he just knows how to like walk it like a tightrope.
Yeah.
Like. It's insane. Like he's got some crazy mouse control. That guy. It's really cool.
Yeah. So I think Sajed is progressing well. And I think he was the best AD carry. But I think I know where Gordo's going to go, and I do understand.
Yeah. Well, like I think Sajed can be all of those things. I think we just don't actually see that much of it this split. Like, he only plays 12 games, and I think this is the nature of the role, this split, especially. Like, I think it was not an 80 carries split. It was, like, I think you saw a couple of teams try to kind of brute force it, some doing better than others. I think the ones that did better are the ones that take up my first and second All-Pro teams. I have Sajed third.
Wow. Okay.
And it's really just because, like, I agree he has some of those really sick Lucian games where, you know, the perfect spacing and team fighting, like, comes in clutch and is what wins them the game. But it's like, I think there's really only, like, 3 or 4 games like that when you really get down to it. I think he spends there's a lot of games where he's kind of just chilling on Varus or Ezreal or Misfortune or something. And farming it up, and his team's ahead 5k gold the first time he even rolls up somewhere, and like, you know, they would win it whether he was, you know, the best gold generating player in the league or not. He is that. He's, you know, he's doing his job. He's sitting down there. He's generating gold, even while not receiving a huge amount of support. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of all he's doing, and he doesn't play enough games, and those games don't end up in close enough game states where I feel like he is frequently called upon to be that clutch team fighter. I agree that he can be. I just don't think we see it much this split. And my rankings are very deliberately just for this split.
Yeah, that's really fair. I do think
so. Go ahead.
I think it's a big factor that the Lucian stuff, like, I wish that we got the fun Lucian that we have now in the pairings a little bit earlier in the split. Because it didn't come through until, like, you couldn't viably play that Lucian until last couple weeks. So I'll point out again, I think another playoff riser could be Sajed, because I think the AD carry meta is opening up a bit more. But I think that's a very fair point, Gordo. There were more overall impactful AD carries to their specific team than Sajed.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that meta stuff is why I have tactical first.
Tactical's my second, so yeah.
Yeah, I think what sets tactical apart for me, because I actually think Doublelift is a little bit better statistically in some ways, not to spoil things, but tactical, I really appreciate him and Luminosity like actually leaning into like demanding lane attention for bottom lane in a meta where that isn't happening very much. Like I think tactical is like on the cutting edge of really prioritizing this Kalista. Like everybody's drawing Kalista bans, but I think tactical more than anybody. He's playing these Caitlyn lanes. He's playing the aggressive Tristana lanes with like Zeyzal and Alistar to try to like really get them ahead early on. And, you know, despite some noticeable flubs, I think he all around has himself a very, very solid split here. And, you know, he alternates between playing these, like, you know, he'll show the Caitlyn's, he'll show the Kalistas, he'll play, like, a very bot lane-centric style, which feels pretty unique to him. And, like, other than, like, Doublelift Biofrost playing some Xayah Rakan here and there, it's, like, mostly tactical going for this stuff. And, like, even when he's not doing that and he's playing the more traditional carries, he is, like, often called on by Luminosity to play that late game because they play such a controlled style. So, yeah, I give mine to tactical.
Yeah, I would say everyone is in agreement. I don't think anyone has a tactical.
You don't have tactical second?
I don't even have tactical in my top 3.
You don't even have tactical.
Let's go.
I was thinking that.
TDS tactical second. TDS Slayer, you
I
guys
do
both
have
tactical second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of tactical out, but at the same time, like, when thinking about how I see Luminosity playing, tactical needs to, like, not necessarily be the hyper carry, but, like, he needs to be doing a lot of damage. And he can have his moments, but he still is probably going to be doing a lot of damage. And I value that a lot in the way that Luminosity needs to play. So that's why I think tactical would be my second. I would maybe put him down third. Like the second and third, I would say it's interchangeable 100%. Because I was more impressed with third than second. But just because of like how I'm seeing Luminosity, I put tactical second.
Mm-hmm. Who do you have second, Quax?
I love the
Quax
tactical hate is
yeah, I mean, dude, I don't know. For me, the reason I'll start this by prefacing why I didn't put tactical in my top 3. I don't really feel like tactical I feel like you guys are maybe overselling tactical's how should I say influence on the game. I felt like Luminosity were a little bit more privy to that top side than they were to bottom lane. Like I felt like tactical had some pop-off games. Like he obviously is racking up some really good numbers. But I feel like if we're gonna make the argument that Sajed is the guy who is you know, the first time he rolls up to a team fight, his team is just ahead. Like the same could kind of be said for tactical. And honestly, I got to keep up with the brand. So like there's a few reasons, right? Like tactical, Malphite, all into my fridge. But my second all-pro 80 carry is actually Chrome. So I really was impressed by Chrome this split. Like I felt like if you want to talk about the big reason why a team is winning the games that they're winning, Chrome is the carry for Conviction. Like him and Kisno are the guys. And I feel like obviously you can look at all of Conviction's roster and you can realistically see all of them in the driver's seat. Like we've seen Hoarder carry games, we've seen Darkwings carry games, but I feel like Chrome more often than not, he is the reason why they have that gold lead. And when they come up to a team fight first time, he team fights really well. Like I would say that for a guy who is in his sophomore year, this is a sophomore year in NACL, right?
Chrome has played longer than that, I believe, because he was on like
I think he's played at the
for a
very least more.
Okay,
so he's been playing since like 2023.
Okay, fine. I should say this. For a newer AD carry, at least when we're comparing him to fucking tactical and Doublelift, he team fights extremely well. So I think that is a big thing. And then I also think that his laning with Manui is really good. This isn't something that we actually have talked about with the AD carries just yet, but like their cohesion with their in lane counterpart, I think is another thing that to me puts Chrome a little bit above. And that's really surprising because a lot of people were low on Manui going into the split, and I feel like him and Manui bounce off each other really, really well in the lane. And yeah, I mean, hey man, last thing I'll say about Chrome, who knew that when you don't have a certain Pooh Bear as your jungler and a certain set support enjoyer as your support, great things can come to you.
Okay, so Gordo, are you Sajed?
I'm Sajed
third team. Okay, so who's
I
your
have double if second.
Okay,
I think. Yeah, I nearly had double if first over tactical. I waffled on that a lot.
D-Lift is off my list.
What?
D-Lift is off my list.
I feel like you guys really hate. Okay.
I think we take it. I don't know. I think I understand it. My argument would be I think we're just taking it. I'm tempted to as well. Like I didn't want double lift on here, but I think it's just hard
to. I feel like you guys are being a bit mean to the man. Like, listen.
Yeah, like I think he has a solid little split here. It's not.
I think it's solid. I do think it's solid. But yeah, like I like. He's the honorable mention.
Yeah, like I think if Spawn or somebody rolled up and had the split that Double Lift has had, we would be, I think, real hyped about it. I think it's just like Double Lift has such name value attached to him that we kind of let it slip on by. But if this was Spawn or a Ray or Lynx or somebody, we would be like, damn, this guy's ready.
Counter argument. If Spawn had the split that Double Lift had, I would say like he probably is not going to get a starting spot anymore. Because I feel like Double Lift split hasn't been that great. Like stat wise, you can always get by with stats, but like watching him play makes me really appreciate how the other side of the map is playing. And that's not to mean that he's horrible, but like he's committed some mistakes that I would really believe are probably other AD carries mistakes, not him. Like you can get caught up a couple of times, but like he has died multiple times in really questionable spots in really important games. Like he got manhandled by Tactical, if I'm not wrong, on the third game of their first match. Which it's fine if it's the first match, but like you cannot commit the same mistake time and time again and then expect me not to like feel surprised.
I think if the teams meet
that's
up
why
now,
I'm surprised.
I think if Near Airport and Luminosity meet up now near Airport, I would favor.
I think they win, but I don't think it's because of Double Lift. Like even his last performance was questionable to me as well.
When I was talking about I was trying to put the right perspective on why I put Double Lift at third, and I agree with you, right? Like people, when Double Lift came into the league, they were expecting big pop off, CLG, TSM, Double Lift, 1v9 carry, and he hasn't been that, right? Near Airport has very much been a top side focused team with Speak Up Pobelter and sometimes Blade more or less leading the charge. And I feel like when you look at teams that play through topside, their bot lane is oftentimes overlooked simply because they aren't a carry. This is something that I feel like a lot of people say when they talk about Damwon 2020 with Ghost, right? Like Ghost was not a carry on the Damwon squad and was subsequently a terrible ADC. Like we don't even rank him in the top 3 of that tournament. When his ability to soak up pressure, farm, be relevant when team fights came around was what allowed them to, have that extra punch going forward. I very much feel like that's Double Lift's role on this team, right? Soak up pressure, be the guy in lane.
You can make an argument though, because there's you can make the argument. There's Ghost and then there's Keith McBride. And I think I'm more inclining more towards Double Lift being on the Keith McBride side than on the Ghost side this split. That's why I'm not impressed. Not only not impressed, I wasn't expecting him to be the best player because he was off professional play for quite a bit. His main opposition was OQ AD carries, which are obviously not going to be the biggest opposition in most opportunities. And then coming back into the league, he was going to, at the very least, not be ranked number 1. I wasn't even expecting him to be top 3, if I'm honest with you. I was expecting him to be just sort of on the edge to be able to fight his way back towards being the top the longer the split goes on. And I still believe that, I think by the end, he can perfectly fine be the number 1 AD carry. But, when watching him play, even in the before last match, the one against Winthrop. I am not a mobility believer. I think mobility played way better than Doublelift in that series. And that to me is a huge shout as to why I'm really in disbelief to Doublelift's level. Obviously, not wanting to say that mobility is horrible, but I never got into the hype of him. Just
I feel like people I feel like people had their expectation of Doublelift on how he was going to operate on the team. He didn't meet that, and so people are just unimpressed. And like you can legitimately say that like you think Doublelift didn't perform well this split. I actually think 80 carry was one of the most highly performative roles across the board. Like I felt like there were like I thought Array in particular was also really good. Like I was impressed with him on CCG.
Yep.
And like I thought mobility on Winthrop as well performed really, really nicely, especially toward like what Gordo said earlier, like that back third half. I think that mobility really popped off along with Denethor. But it's like I still feel like Doublelift had his role in the team and accomplished it the best that he could. Like this is kind of what I said about Fake God, where Fake God doesn't get a ton of resources and still manages to be relevant. Doublelift is that, but in the 8 carry role.
So what separated keeping him double off the list for me is kind of just like the centric theme that I guess I'm realizing more and more now is part of my list, and like overall impact that a player has in wins and what it looks like if you just put like if you took the median stats of the players in the NACL at that role and then plugged that player in instead of who I'm ranking, like what does the team look like? And for me, I think Doublelift, while he had a good split, like I don't think taking him out and putting like a middle 80 carry would really change a lot of near airport results. Where I think if you pulled Chrome out and put in like a middling
we
one,
saw that though.
I just think that's what I'm. So that's why I put Chrome third. But I do think it's warranted to say that I'm biased that I was expecting a huge Doublelift split. That probably does play a little bit into it. I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't.
Like that's why, like when they tried their experimenting out with Sushi and I'm sorry for blanking on your name, Sushi and Kelpo, like the different, like Slayer saying, the difference between them and the double it via Frost bottling wasn't as noticeable compared to if you pull out Chrome or Array from their respective teams, and you try and see how they perform. And I think that that's a really indicative like situation for New Airport. Obviously, the way that the team plays, like Quax was saying, but also the fact that like there wasn't any like there was I don't even remember actually. Did Doublelift have a pop-off game at all in this split? Because I'm actually trying to think, but I don't remember any. Like I think he was just serviceable, never a pop-off.
I think he had a couple of really good Varus games. I know that he was.
Yeah, but Quax, that's like the Bled champion of 2025. It's like anybody can play a good Varus game right now.
All
like,
right, well,
I wouldn't take it away, but I'm legitimately blanking on. Like I'm legitimately blanking on those pop-off games that I at the very least was expecting him to have won. Where I can think most of the top 80 carries have that one pop-up game. In general, I'm blanking on Double Ape's pop-up game. That's why I'm kind of surprised with the way that the split went for him. I am so, and I also want to add, I don't have him in my top 3, but I would say he's top 4. Top 5 would be way too low. I think top 4 would be sufficient. To me, the third 80 carry was actually Array, because I do think that he was pivotal to CCG's success in a lot of manners. And I think that if you take for Array's performance as well, comparatively to previous years where he was floundering a little bit more, this was a really important show up that he had. And I think that that's why I'm putting him this high. Because like Chrome to me last year, he performed really, really good. Or last split, he performed really, really good in general. And I think he followed up with this one. He performed really, really good as well. But
so you
go
ahead, keep going.
No, yeah. So like to me, Array had such a bad performance last time I saw him, or maybe not such a bad, but like a bad performance last time I saw him in an ACL, that it was important for him to have this year. And I think he performed really, really much better comparatively.
So you're Sajed Chrome Array.
No, it's Sajed tactical Array.
Okay, right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Sajed Chrome Doublelift. I'm the only guy that likes Chrome.
No. I'm Sajed tactical.
Oh yeah, okay.
So sorry, who's your third Slayer? Doublelift?
Chrome is
Chrome.
mine.
Okay,
Respect.
and your third is double lift Quax.
Yes.
Hey, we have good variety
That's
here.
by far the
after,
most diversity we've had across
Yeah,
this list
with
so
the
far.
most-
by
Sorry,
the way.
who's your third
Quality one.
TDS?
Array.
Oh.
Hey, there we
alright, well, that's a new
go.
name.
All right.
See, we have a huge variety here. That's a good.
I had
good
an
pick.
array as an
we-
honorable mention for mine. Chrome falls just
Same.
a little further below him, so Chrome's not really on my list.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I'm a
Chrome to me
tactical hate
suffers from Kisno being too good. That's my thing there.
watcher. That's fair, actually. Like,
And also the other player that I think like impacted a lot of my decision with Chrome is Minui, which is something that we'll talk about later as well. But Minui to me, like his changeup was so important that I think that I want to mention him when we go to that. Actually, now that we're going to, because we're pretty much finished here, we can go to support.
Yeah. I could open this up with support if we're
Sure.
going like around the carousel here.
Yeah, let's do it, Quax.
Yeah, so my first All Pro support was Zazel. I felt like this one was pretty. I would imagine this one is mostly unanimous simply because I feel like Zazel. Like, okay, listen, where Tactical fell short, Zazel went long. I felt like a lot of the engages that Luminosity Gaming were able to pull off were in part due to Zazel constantly just throwing himself on like the Rel and all of these engaged supports. He had really good flanks as well. And overall, I think that this is honestly one of the funniest fucking things because Zazel as my first All-Pro support was probably not what I was expecting going into this because Zazel when he goes into tier 1, at least nowadays, it's not like the best, right? Like when he was on Shopify last year, it was just the most like whatever. And then he comes down here. I'm expecting Zyko to at least be better than him. Zyko's close, but dude, Zazel just actually looks way better now. Like in tier 2, like the man is like the definition of a tier 2, tier 1 gatekeeper.
He actually is.
He literally is. Like it's hilarious. Zazel's my first All Pro for sure.
You know how they said Diamond was like too good for tier 2, but not enough for tier 1? I think Zazel takes that up to a notch where he's way too good for tier 2, and he probably can play in tier 1, but it's not going to be the top, but he will 100% be there in tier 1 level.
Yeah. I don't have much to say about Zazel because I could quite literally regurgitate it from the last time I saw Zazel in the NACL and also put him as the clear first team All-Pro support, where I'm just like, this guy's a bona fide elite leader. He obviously is making the calls with how he plays these engaged supports. He just plays so fluid. Like, he knows that this is his playground, man. And all I can say now is I'm hoping he gets the right spot on a tier 1 team at some point because he's maybe he won't because he's like the old head stuff, but he should because he's such a good leader. And it finally clicks because he is so in limbo between LTA and NACL.
Yeah.
This guy's he was head and shoulders best support for me. It was basically all split long.
Like, I kind of hate Zazel at this point because I feel like he should just consistently play in tier 1, but I understand why he doesn't want to play for bottom tier teams. Like, it's perfectly understandable. Going from C9 to then just playing consistently on bottom to mid tier teams is probably not the best choice, even though C9 was a mid tier team for a while. So, like, it's kind of sad, but I just feel like Zazel shouldn't be here at all because of his level being much better than his general competition. That's why it's kind of
just feel like
situation.
I wonder what Zazel's like career plans are, right? Because we've heard. I assume I'm not the only one. There's been rumors flying around that so many, in fact, that I feel like they're basically confirmed that he was offered the Shopify job and didn't want it, right? Like
I believe that. Like,
but I understand why, right? Like
it sounds like
it's another
but,
bottom
like,
tier team.
I just don't understand. Yeah, I understand that. What I don't understand is saying that and then coming and joining this Luminosity team, which is like a roster built to promote and then get 8th.
Well,
the thing is that didn't they say that Zazel is a player that, well, not to follow up on if they get 8 or not, but like, isn't Zazel like one of those players that they've said that he doesn't want to like put in the huge amount of time to just be able to play, and that's why he goes like he's fine being in tier 2 if it's not like a top contender team. I think I've heard that in the broadcast once.
I don't know. I
Before.
feel like he wants to
That's
be on
why
a more
it felt like
competitive
that.
team, is what I've generally
Yeah,
heard.
but like
and
if
he,
it's, if it's a top team, I think he would go to. The problem is that if it's something like
Yes.
Shopify, that's where I think that he probably doesn't want to commit the amount of time that he probably
I
needs
get
to
that,
commit
but
it.
I just
Bro
feel
just
like
wants to
Luminosity
win, like-
is destined to be
Yeah,
Shopify again, right? Like that's the end game for this team.
Is it possible though that Zazel just could just believe in the Luminosity team and like coaching staff more than he wanted to run back Shopify? Like,
I guess
don't
mean
think
that
that's
makes
an
one of
impossible
us.
Scenario.
If so, like I don't.
Yeah,
like, this is the
maybe
Shopify.
maybe he just
like
wanted
I feel
to
like
change
if that's
more,
really
like,
what you wanted to do, I feel like if you really want to go to a top tier team, I feel like Zazel should be like gunning to get on a team with like a Sajed or a Sushi or somebody. Like he should want to be mentoring the next generation and try to like become a package deal with that guy and like show out on as like a big upcoming guy. I just don't know what pairing with Tactical is going to do for your career to get you on those top 4 teams if that's really what you want.
Well, this could
Yeah,
also be a
I
test
just
run though, because like we also need to consider that this technically is not the qualifying round, right? Like
True.
the important part is going to be next. So there's always the chance that this is Tactical's way of seeing, is this team enough or is it something that I should reconsider once again?
I
Like,
guess. I mean, my
it's
criticism
not
of
defined
Luminosity,
yet.
the whole split, has been that like I feel like this team doesn't have a lot of ways to raise its ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of known quantity.
Like I would
to
like a
certain
team
degree.
like this to have 1 or 2 players where it's like, that you don't there's some variance there, and like if if everything comes up heads, you have yourself like a top half LTA player, I feel like this team does not have that potential at any position.
Okay,
Anyway,
I don't think
my
just-
first team is Zazel,
yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, we're across the
Zazel's a
board.
monster. It's a Zazel sweep. I mean, this guy's the best.
The number one.
This
But
guy's
then
the
I would
best.
assume that number 2 is probably also a sweep. Zyko is at least my number 2. I felt like... Now, listen, I should preface this by saying I feel like my top 3 for support is... They basically all fill the same niche, but some just do it better than others. Like, I kind of felt like Zyko was doing what Zazel was doing, but just not to the same level, if that makes sense. I also felt like Zyko has, like, the added bonus, to me at least as a player, of just having a lot of, like, flank angles. Like, he finds a lot of creative ways into the fight, like, particularly when he's playing more mobile supports like the Rakan. Man is super slippery on that champion, by the way. There are times where you're thinking, oh, this guy's 100% dead. They don't die. I also think that Zyko has been just a little bit off at times. Like, he's had some very questionable plays where he, like, goes in or gets caught and you don't expect him to get caught. But I still think he's number 2.
Yeah, he's
My
my
number
2 as
2
well. I think 1-2 support. There's a drop after it. It's clear. I do give Zyko a bit of credence because as fun as the Scary Jerry Zyko story was, like the turnaround they had a lot of time to play together, right? You could kind of see that a turnaround might happen, like how many sheer splits of just as a Maryville bottom lane they were. So I'm giving Zyko a bit of like a spring split leniency towards his play because he has to adjust, like we just talked about, to a very different AD carry player next to him in his first split playing with him. So there were going to be speed bumps in their synergy, and I don't want to dock Zyko's play. I still think he is the clear best, like, actual. No, sorry, Zazel, for this disrespect here. Actual support prospect from NACL, and the clear one that, like, if you don't want to give Zazel another try because you've seen what he brings you, Zyko should be the first call up as a support to the LTA, and it's another split of him solidifying that.
Mm-hmm.
I
agree.
I was between him and another one, and my third choice. I actually was considering between the two of them. So here's my second one, but like I actually had
Psycho
to think
sweep.
a lot about it because like my number third, Psycho is great. I will agree. Like I think his adaptation time, or the time that he needs to adapt to a different player, still looks quite kind of great. So like at the very least, even in the time that he needs to adapt, he's doing a lot of things for the side of Dark Zero. And particularly now, like he needed to step up even more. I think that he will do an even better job at trying to be that main voice without Yuji present there. He needs to be one of the main ones there, and I think he will do a pretty good job at that as well. So I think Psycho is going to be it's pretty straightforward number 2. Although I did have a lot of questioning here because my number 3 and one of the players that I've been the most impressed with is Minui. I really like my jump from my perspective with Minui from last split to this one is like night and day with this player. I think the best
So
thing
he's your
I think
third?
what I mentioned is he's my third pick.
Yeah.
To me, like this changed my perspective on how I see Minui now. And really, I think I mentioned this before, but the best thing he could have done was make this role swap because he fits like a natural born support player that was too stubborn to start support and decided to start AD carry, but he finally made the right choice and went support. Because like his way of moving around the map, his understanding of some of the things that he needs to do, his laning phase is not bad either, but like his just impact in general at trying to make the team move around well enough is superior to a lot of the other supports, especially considering this is his first split as a support player. I think that that's such an important thing to magnify because it can only go higher and higher if he keeps on becoming a better support like this.
Yeah. No, I like the Manui respect honestly, but my third all pro is Breezy. I felt like I like CCG's success in the bot lane. Like you can look at Array, but I do feel like Breezy in particular just has some absolutely nasty plays. Like he finds some crazy angles. I also think that he is one of the best roaming supports. Like I think that his roams are extremely good, especially when you factor in that Array. I think is a AD carry that you want to give more resources. You would normally be more scared about leaving that guy alone, but Breezy understands timers really, really well. And so yeah, he's my third all pro for support.
Yeah, I also have Breezy.
That's fair.
I'm glad that something I kind of predicted about this NACL split kind of landed because everything else kind of flopped for me. So coming in here, that
That
I
led
was
to me with
excited.
Supernova, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, we already hashed the Samakin talk too. Yeah, I think Breezy, best team he's been a part of. You know, solid roster that's not switching around for the first time, and he is right in his element. I think he was a clear floor raiser for CCG alongside Dardoch. So he is my third. I do think it's decently wide open. I think you go with a couple options here at third team All Pro support. So I don't hate the Manui pick at all either.
Yeah, again, I guess once again, I'm gassing up NA a little too hard here, but I do have Biofrost third for me. I think he and Doublelift were, again, a pretty nifty little duo. I think if, Breezy would be my default example here, so I feel like I can't say if Breezy had this kind of split, because Breezy had a pretty close split. Breezy's a close fourth for me. But, I think if, Rovex or whoever had a split like Biofrost had just had, we would be like, oh, yeah, let's go. Rovex is gearing up. He's going to be... he's a top tier NACL support now for real. I think Biofrost has himself a nifty little split. He and Doublelift are, I believe, third in gold difference at 15 for ADs. Also, Doublelift is third in gold difference at 15 for ADs, and I feel like that's a support stat as much as it is an AD carry stat. KP's super high. He has a couple of different. He's about as many MVPs as any other support on my list when I'm tracking my MVP tracking here at 3. Breezy and Zazel have 3 as well, so he's not like in a category of his own there. But all in all, I'm happy to lean in towards Biofrost over Breezy for this. I think their lane is very, very solid.
Yeah. I think support was actually kind of a bit of a big surprise for me this split. Like a lot of people are really low on the support pool, and I actually felt like there were at least half of the league's supports actually had a relatively decent
I agree. I
split,
feel like the opposite about support that I feel about top lane and mid lane in ways that I can't really articulate well. Like I feel like all 3 roles experience significant brain drain. All 3 roles lose a significant pool of very talented players. I feel like top lane and mid lane come out looking like, the guys who are like in top 3. The only top 3 from last split remaining are now like monsters, and everybody else is like fodder. But support
Kind of feel.
does not feel that way, right? It's not like,
Mhm.
and I guess that's because they get a strong injection of talent in both Zazel and Biofrost together. I feel like
Yeah.
represent.
But I also
would
feel
go
like
step
there were. I
further.
feel like the pre-existing supports also stepped up. You know.
Yes, I agree. Like it feels
Yeah,
like
the
there's more
addition of
parity.
supports was
It
better.
feels like they got a strong injection of talent in Biofrost and Zyko, but like in Biofrost and Zazel, but like Breezy also stepped up and was competitive with them, and Nui stepped up and was also competitive with them. Like I
even think
like
only 35 was one
I
of the
think only
better sports
35 was
in a
good.
losing
I
team.
think
Was
back
really
half
good.
of the season Rovex got better. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot to be happy about its support.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I feel like for top lane and mid lane, like there was I would say an improvement in hands and a loss in brains, to put it like that, in a way. Because I think that the players are actually quite mechanically good when you look at some of the players that we have in terms of the soul lane. I just think that they are at times too dumb to make the best out of it. And it can be a good thing in the future, but right now it looks much bad or worse than it should be. But I'm excited for the future of some of these players because, like, in terms of solo lanes, like, I'm looking forward to Faimini. I think he can play greatly, but he commits way too many rookie mistakes. So I'm hoping that he can improve on that quite consistently as well. I think Adam, for what Pulsar was able to do, he never seemed like a liability, and he has a lot of upside if he can improve on a couple of things here and during his lane phase and positioning. And I think the same can be said for a lot of the mid laners, bar what which Sword, and then Darkwings that also has played quite a bit, but I think that he still has enough upside. So I'm more inclined to believe that just the mechanical side improved. It's just that they need to correct some of those stupidity moments, to put it like that.
It's fair. It's fair. All right. Let's get into the other superlatives. Do we want to go rookie of the split, most improved MVP? I think that's the right order to go.
Down for that.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that makes sense.
All right. I have 1 through 3 for all of these. I don't know about you guys.
Ooh, I just have one.
We can just do one. We can do honorable mentions after, especially if we have different people.
Yeah.
I'll go first, I guess. And that way we'll have exactly 8 categories, so we'll each get to lead off on one. My rookie of the split. You brought me over to your side, Quax. It finally happened. I do have Hoarder. I have the last week and my go back through all of my different, I do stats, I do MVPs, I do champ pools, I do a lot of stuff to prepare my final lists. I do all that together, and I do have to say Hoarder for me.
Hoarder King! Yeah. Thank you. Because that's also...
You're welcome. You're welcome to Quax and Hoarder.
I was really close between 2 here, and I don't usually like to have the standings kind of impact my thoughts on rookie of the split because like it.
I guess actually, like, really quick, just because it sounds like you're gearing up to say a name that isn't Hoarder, I guess I should gas up Hoarder a little bit.
Oh no, I'm saying Hoarder.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I guess I already
Hoarder.
talked about Hoarder when I gave him third team All Pro, but so I don't actually have that much unique to say. But 12 solo kills is the same amount as Zamudo. I'll give you that much. I'll draw that comparison because why not? It's worth it to gas up the hype rookie here.
Yeah, but my honorable mention, and should be everyone's, is clearly Aojun. So I was very close to saying Aojun.
I think TF Blade is my second, actually. I still think...
That's a fair one.
I think he comes in and has a very impressive split. I think all 3 are great candidates. I think all 3 are better candidates. This might be a hot take. I think all 3 are better candidates than Levitate last year.
I think there was less competition.
I don't know if I can.
There was less
I
competition for
Reese
Levitate
Device
last year, but
I think there was less competition because
I agree with that,
in
actually.
Semikin last year.
I
When
don't
thinking
agree
about
with
it.
that.
Now that I think about it a little bit more.
all right. Quax, who's your rookie of the split?
My rookie of the split is Hoarder.
Yeah.
Gotta give it to the boy. TDS, you're gonna say something different. Come on.
Chance for a sweep.
Yeah, sadly it's not the case here. So initially I was on TF Blade's side, then I was inching a little bit more on Hoarder's side.
You sized it, Italy.
But realistically, it's neither of them. Mine is Aljun, actually. Like, I'm more inclined with Aljun.
Yes. All
First and
right.
foremost, because I value mid laners more than any other role. This is a bias of mine, but I just think mid laners are the best players always. So like I will always be biased if there's a really good mid laner. And I do think that Aljun, for what my criticism was going to be starting off this NACL split to now, I think he completely shut down any doubts that I have, and he really showed up in a way that I was excited to see him play even more, because I thought that he was going to be having a lot of jitters, he wasn't going to be able to perform in a lot of situations, and he was going to have a difficult time. But completely different to that, and like Dardox said last week, like he feels really like he's confident enough to go up against most mid laners. He doesn't shy away from making mistakes. He does quite a few amount of mistakes, but I feel like that can happen to a rookie, same as it happens to Hoarder. I think the most important part for me is that he doesn't really take from that, but he keeps on going with most of the things that he wants to do, and it works out a lot of the situations. And his way of playing with the team was great as well. The only bad part for him is that he was below Hoarder. That would have made him look a little bit better in terms of standings. But to me, I just value mid laners a little bit more, and that's why I put him above Hoarder or TF Blade.
I respect that.
I respect that
think
as well.
I think it was a very close toss-up for probably all of us, that just Aljun and Hoarder were neck and neck. I said on the podcast last week when we were with Dardock, the thing that was going to tip me over the edge from one to another was who won that series. And I think, yeah, like it's damn close, which I think is really cool, because I don't recall last split it being close between two different for
Not
me,
between two different teams. I think it was close between Samukin and Levitate.
It was
between
Samukin
the
and
two of them.
Levitate. Yeah. And so it's cool that two different teams have such prominent rookies on their squad that are performing.
Yeah. Last year it was Samukin and Levitate and Crimson in a distant third. Or Kryra, if you were willing to give it to Kryra after 6 games.
Yeah, I think Kryra at the time was because of not enough. So the funny thing is that now essentially Kryra can play next split, and he would also be a rookie next split, right? Because technically he doesn't have enough games.
I don't know what the rules are. I'm gonna say probably not. I feel like he's got like a dozen games or something between these two splits.
That's kind of sad, because in a sense he kind of gets robbed because of that.
I mean that's what happened to
more
APA
than likely
and LTA.
Then he just has to be really good, and we can put him in top 3. Honestly, like I am prepared to put Kryra top 3 when he actually has a permanent position in NACL. When, not if, because I think he's really, really good.
Yeah, circumstances aside, he probably should have been.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think the list is quite fair. And also I want to make a shout out, because I think the obvious ones were kind of obvious, but Mini to me was impressive. He had Yone games and then the rest, and I think that he just needs to correct certain things, but he was really impressive to me for first time split. I would say one of his first attempts at professional play, really, or competitive play, when looking at like his track record. So really impressed with him. And if AMI can keep their spot, or even if they don't, I hope that Mini comes back to NACL. Like I feel like he deserves another shot here.
Well, and Low Jazz. Church of Religions.
All right. So
most improved. I want you to know I will change my decision on this to block a sweep if I have to. I have two very close. I have two very close.
Well,
are you starting us off?
No, Slayer is. I started us
off.
Well,
I was going to have TDS start us off because he's been the
TDS
contrarian.
can too?
I want him to lead out. Yeah.
So I pretty much mentioned this before. I was between two players actually with most improved, because to me the most improved has to be NACL improved from NACL previous split to this one. So I would take away like the players that were in OQs and then immediately jump here. It wouldn't make too much sense in that way for me. So it was between either Dardock, which his last split in NACL was awful, like it wasn't pretty at all, and then the other player that I've always critiqued. He did play jungle, and it was bad.
So like that's why he did play jungle.
So then, are you automatically discounting Minui as well?
No, I'm taking the other one was Minui. That's why I'm admitting like it had to be NACL players' previous performances, and those two were the ones that I was more on the side that I critiqued them a lot, but then they improved a lot as well in this split. But it inches out for Minui once again because first of all he's in my top 3 supports. And then also the fact that I just feel like he was made to play support, and it really shows whenever he's able to play like he did in a lot of those games. The freedom that he has to make a lot of things happen when he's not stuck in bot lane. I just feel like it was meant to be, and he really was the most improved to me.
Okay.
This is tough because like I think it's weird to hand it out for a role swap.
It's weird, but it feels justified here.
It does. It does. It's not my choice, but I get behind it.
Yeah, like I can
Okay,
understand
Quax, what's your
if it's
choice, then?
not the sense, but yeah.
So my choice was actually extremely like I thought about this for a little bit. Like when Gordo said we were doing most improved, I was like, oh shit. Manui was close.
Okay.
I felt like to me my most improved was Denethor. I felt like Denethor last split. We expected him to be a lot better than he actually will. Like last split, NACL Denethor was not good. Like I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was rough. This split though, like I feel like we're seeing shades of what we were initially expecting. Right? Like I don't think that Denethor is obviously there yet in the sense that he is like a top 3 top laner in the league. I still think he has a decent amount of ways to go. But I think he's really good. Like I think he came into his own a little bit more this split, got a little bit more comfortable this split. I actually think a lot of the Winthrop boys in general leveled up. Like I think that Wilson, I initially was coming into this split thinking that Wilson might be like one of the worst returning players in all of NACL. He showed up in my opinion. I felt like Sword had a really good split as well. So I was kind of, looking at the Winthrop boys for most improved. And I felt like the biggest winner was Denethor personally.
So I have a name that hasn't been said. It's
too.
going to reflect on my all pro teams. I have Chrome here. I'm putting Chrome as my most improved. I know. Like he was. I think he was one of the best parts
He was
of the Slumu
gatekept
team.
by Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah. So like, well, right. So there's those memes, but I do think like has taken a massive step up, specifically in his IQ of those pockets you have to play in as an AD carry. I was very impressed at his resolve in approaching just a lot of his movements around when he can really fight, how to position, especially on like the guy just made Jin look like a hyper carry, and that was so fun to watch this year with some of those
His
Jin
Jin
games.
is crazy.
That was fun. Yeah.
I think most improved player is really wide open. I respect people that will say Manui. I respect people that say Dardoch. I respect people that say Dardoch a little bit more than Manui because I think Role Swapping support is a little bit of a cheat code. But I just
80 carry made disrespecting his support for
anyone
that
role
fucking
swapping
uncle
support.
when he was on gravity.
Dardoch technically role swapped as well, though.
I have a fourth different name, even a fifth different
This is
name.
fun. Yeah.
If you count TDS's mention of Dardoch. I have Manui second, I have Denethor third, so I respect to those choices as well. Going off of TDS's logic about Dardoch that we're allowed to like take breaks between NACL splits, for me it's Kisno. Like if you think back to what Kisno looked like on Lit Esports, I mean it's night and day. Obviously he's on a much better team now, but I mean even looking to OQ's last split, right? I feel like Dragoon's Goons was a team that was a lot more about Array and Dragoon slamming and a lot less about Kisno. And this split, I think Kisno's a monster. I think he has a really, really strong claim to being easily a top half jungler, very possibly a top 4 jungler, depending on how much of a Tomio hater you are, or I guess everybody else but me has him above Dardoch. So surely they all have him top 4 as well. It's it's a really, really strong split for Kisno. I think that guy came out of Korea like the hyperbolic time chamber that we know Korea can be, and he looks great. I'm very excited for this guy to appear again in summer, have actual back-to-back NACL splits for the first time in his career, and get a real crack at leveling up after multiple splits in a row in the league, getting that level of scrim time. And based on some rumors flying around, this guy's also gotten some LCS tryouts, or LTA tryouts, rather. So it's not only me who thinks that Kisno has had a massive step up here. And hopefully he can keep going, because, yeah, he might be he might be on that path to be a player that we're really talking about in a couple of splits.
I think most improved. There's so much room for your was it like the qualifications for
Yeah,
it?
I like the
And
diversity of our picks.
Yeah.
I think it's the most wide open of the awards that we could really give out here. So it's good to see that we're all kind of in different spots.
Absolutely, especially because I think we're going to coagulate into one little center point here for MVP.
This is gonna be the quickest one because we already made the point.
Yeah, I guess you handed it off to TDS for the last one. Slayer, do you want to start us off for MVP?
Yeah, if you'd like to rewind and see why we picked this guy as the MVP, we kind of already sang his praise. It's the next up and coming LTA top laner. Zamudo should be the sweeping most valuable prospect. I do know that Gordo is going to bring up another point, which I think is valid. But again, like we've said, Zamudo's a matchup nightmare, open champion pool, head and shoulders in all stats above anyone else, really, especially top laners. He is a nightmare in Tier 2. He has evolved into a form that should surpass the NACL by this point, and we can only hope that that spot opens up for him. Congrats, Zamudo. What else to say?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
It's a Zamudo sweep, I think, here. Yeah, Slayer made some reference to it earlier. I think Spica has a real claim here, especially because Zamudo doesn't play a whole season. I think everybody in this show feels a little icky giving it to like a player who's been to Worlds and has been on like multiple Tier 1 super teams and stuff. To just say, he's our most valuable prospect. I own up to it. It's just most valuable player for me. I don't like try to treat this any differently than I would an LTA MVP vote. I think it's the player who played the best on the season. I am still leaning to Zamudo, even given that and given the game volume difference because of how much he stands out as the very best top laner, whereas, Spica can be challenged by, some of these other top tier junglers in the league, Eugene in particular. But yeah, I'm happy to go. I'm happy to go Zamudo. So I have Zamudo number 1, Spica number 2, and I'll say I have Zeyzal number 3 to finish out the top 3 teams there.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think it's fair. I would be contrarian in here actually, but like I do think Zamudo probably inches it out like that as well. So I wasn't on Spica's side. If it was a competition before me, it was Zamudo and Pobelter, because I do think that the problem for me with Spica comes with the fact that I don't think that he was the clear number 1 jungler, because Yuji was there, but because Yuji is not longer there, like he takes a spot. But technically speaking, he wasn't the clear number 1. Where I do think that Pobelter and Zamudo were the clear number 1s, but I do inch Zamudo a little bit higher just because of like he feels so dominant that it's kind of difficult for me to really pull it up against them. So that's why.
You had a very good split when you can't turn TDS into a contrarian on a rankings list. It's
huge.
Yeah.
That's when you've done it. Yeah.
And that's good. Being united on that, I feel like is a good thing for the last award that we're given.
Yeah, it's true.
Definitely.
All
right, it's been a party for a split.
All-Pro.
So we are at over 2 hours. And the playoffs this week are just the first 2 rounds, so they're not even that interesting to talk about.
And it's double Elim.
So I'm gonna say
it's double Elim. We gotta wait.
Screw talking about playoffs for this week. Let's just get over to ACL.
Yep.
All right. Cool. Uncontroversial. Let's do it.
Just a quick one.
All right. Yeah. I mean, let me double check this really quick, but I'm pretty sure it's like just the first 2 rounds, right? It's just.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just quarters, winners, semis. We don't even have any lower bracket matchups this week.
I don't believe so.
No, pretty sure not.
Yeah. Okay. Then definitely. Yeah, Thursday, 5/22 is the round 1 lower matchup. Yeah, so it's not until next week. All right, cool. So yeah, very easy to just say. We'll talk about playoffs next week. I probably predict all the matches by seed, I think. think everybody here probably does. Maybe you have a unique conviction versus CCG take, but
Yeah, that's probably the
we just
closest one.
previewed this matchup a week ago, so go watch that again.
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
still an exciting matchup. It went to 3 games last time. It'll probably go to 3 games again. All right. Let's get into ACL then. A big week in ACL where we qualify 4 more teams to the playoffs. Let's start off with that. We qualify 4 more teams to the playoffs. Those teams are DE Esports with a 2-0 win over Weber State, Pookie Bear with a 2-0 win over UCI, Apex Predators with a 2-1 over Flippers, and Galaxy Gaming with a 2-0 over Prosperity.
Yes.
Any big standouts here?
I think Pookie was
Not
fun
really.
to see.
That's
The
not a
fact that we were
Pookie
able to see
Bear.
them was good. No, I mean, like, just watching them was fun to see them, and I think showed what they were qualifying. But like, it just feels like everything kind of fell into place with who should qualify. Maybe
Yeah.
Prosperity not getting one win probably could be like the questionable one, but
I think it was safe to. I think was curious. I thought UCI could have won this matchup. I'm a little disappointed that it's a 2-0 for Pookie Bear.
Yeah,
knowing
I was
some of the
very,
names that we have on
very.
UCI.
Yeah,
true.
my highlight for this series for me is Che. Che's a monster. What a great series from him. He has a really
Yeah.
sick Nico game in there. Really, really impactful. And he has a pretty solid Alistair game in there too. And really, really stands out as a big game changer for that. I also want to highlight Sean just as a player that we don't really know much about. We haven't seen much of before. It's not Sean Atonin. It is a different Sean.
Nope, not
It's
Sean.
just Shun.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, I came into that series, I was even talking on pre-show. I was like, yeah, I mean, Pookie Bear's been trading out between, like, Sean and this secret location guy. Neither are players that I've ever really seen before and have stood out to me. So to me, it doesn't really matter who's playing. But then Sean comes out and has a really, really good series facing down Xiao Danny. So Sean's now, like, on my players to watch list.
That's fair.
Very interesting. Want to keep an eye on this guy coming into playoffs, especially because he's going to have a top half seed off this win. So he's very likely to be playing multiple playoff series
Yeah.
and making a moderately deep run.
Yeah. I guess going off of the trend of matches that we actually covered here on the Salt Mine, we had Prosperity versus Galaxy. I was part of that with Hummus. Shout out.
Yep.
And I will say, dude, Ariandel has the sauce. Like, I was really impressed with him and Cozy in the solo lanes. And I made a point of saying this during the series, but like, this is a team that we are looking for in terms of expecting them to go high outside of ACL. We're going to probably anticipate that these guys will be in OQs. They kept the same roster except for Krakodon. They probably weren't too happy given that they were favored to be one of the teams that made it extremely far. And they kind of got knocked out early in that first OQ this year. They look really good, though. Like, I think that Krakodon didn't have the flashiest of series. I mean, Krakodon isn't really like a flashy jungler in my eyes. I think that he is much more of a facilitator. But it seemed like it worked. Like Cozy and Ariandel were both extremely, extremely good on their pocket picks. Cozy got to throw out his Akali in game 1, and then Ariandel started out 3-0-4 on Aurelian's Soul at like 10 minutes. And then, you look at that in any solo queue game and you just immediately want to slam that fucking FF key or escape key. Still, though, it was a competitive game, too. Prosperity almost brought it back, so much so that we were messaging during the game that Gordo might have to fill in for game 3 because Hummus wouldn't have been able to cast that. And then immediately they turn it around, we say never mind, and we go on about our day. This is a close series. There's a close 2-0, but Galaxy Gaming looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, on name value, like Cozy and Ariandel should be some of the best solo lanes outside of like the teams we've already qualified for playoffs.
Yeah.
I almost expected them to have yeah, this is right around when I expected them to qualify, but Ariandel and Cozy are at their peaks we know them to be at right now. Should be good enough to carry this team to like minimum top 4 finish in the
there's
ACL.
a nasty Cozy Akali game, by the way, in that series to open things up.
Yeah, he got Cali.
Was...
We don't know why.
Yeah, it's Cozy Shroud, man. I wonder what that name's from. I wonder what that reference is.
I wonder.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, he has some crazy highlights from that series. So shout out to Koji. Shout out to the Apex Predators, a team that feels like it's like all supporting cast, right? Like I feel like none of these guys have gotten to be like main character before on a team that's like making ACL playoffs. But they joined together and they qual pretty quickly. They had a pretty solid regular season run here, so I'm happy to see them make it through. You know, they take down Flippers, they take down Supernova Dark Matter. So they have themselves, you know, a pretty solid run here, and they have a close series against Prosperity back in their first run. So they've had some tough competition to round out their regular season, and they still take a pretty early path into these playoffs. So shout out to Apex Predators, another team that could be interesting in playoffs. I mean, I feel like they're after Citadel and like Conviction Star and maybe Galaxy. I feel like there's like a very wide open mid range. I'm very curious to see like what teams are top 6.
Really surprised.
Yeah, I'm very curious to. I think I could probably predict who's going to be top 3. I think it'll be very interesting to see who's top 6.
No.
All right. I think that does it for our qualification matches. Let's talk about the 2-2 teams that are now moving up to face off against some of the losers from the 3-2 bracket, or sorry, the 3-1 bracket, to try to make it in this coming week. You've got Next Level Esports with a 2-0 win over Ember Foxes, Calamity Esports with a 2-0 win over Desperado Esports Damocles, Legacy with a 2-0 win over CBA5 Wagyu. That's with their new bot lane of Fatikan and Mixture. Uncles with a 2-1 win over Tempest, and Foxtrot with a 2-0 win over Bikini Bottom Warriors.
Yeah. Hey guys, I know we just had the NBA draft lottery. There's an ACL lottery here. It's called Don't Draw Legacy Sports Ever. Unfortunate reality that is now being broadcast on ACL. I know because we all have one more series here in the 2-2. You talked about the reschedule between Supernova Dark Matter and Mid Gaming, so like the 3-2 matchups are a little bit murky, but don't draw Legacy Esports.
Yeah, I think it's
prepare for war.
It's funny that you bring that up, Slayer, because this is actually, I think, like my big takeaway of this 2-2 bracket, especially, is what happens to Tempest and what happens to CBA5 Wagyu. We're already talking about the next ACL season a little bit. Obviously, you know, nothing's set in stone. It's not my sole decision. It's not even my partial decision. I mean, if it's whatever, you know, admins get to decide. I can vouch for things, but you know, it's up to the TOs at the end of the day, and I'm not going to pretend like I have the decision making power here. But I will vouch pretty hard for reseeding after GSL next season. I think that absence really gets felt here, and I think you could see it in these last couple of weeks as like teams like Tempest and CBA5 really punch above their weight class in the GSL stage and are rewarded with just grueling freaking matchups from there on out, from like just some of the best teams
not that fun.
that each tier has available. Tempest especially, who come out and I think they're our 3rd team out of their GSL group, maybe, and they have like they're close otherwise. Let me double check myself here. Tempest.
Yeah.
They take out their sister team, and then they take out the so they take out their sister team, and then they take out Calamity. So Tempest Gaming comes out first in their group, right? Sure. I've been rewarded since then by just having some of the toughest freaking matchups imaginable, like, because they were a bottom 3 seed originally, and they come out of GSL winning their GSL group, and now they are getting mollywopped in the 2-2 bracket by really hard matchups, right? They get Uncles here who, looking at the group draw here, like Uncles is a team that was in tier 2. They were like top half of tier 2. And it's just like, there's no reward for Tempest Gaming here. I think Ember Foxes find themselves in a similar position. They get out of like 3rd in their group, and being a bottom 2 seed makes their lives very, very difficult anyway. CBA5 is in this group as well. Like, we had tier 4 teams that like showed up to play and overperformed in their GSL group, and I would like a world where they get a little more for that. They get bumped up in seed for that, similar to how the later OQs ended up working out.
Yeah. That would be the most ideal. Hopefully, we can get help with that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been such a fun learning experience, seeing a different approach to ACL.
Yeah, I think the format's great. I think it's just a little. It's not a surprise at all that it could use a little tinkering, and I do think
it always will.
Yeah, and I do think
this is our first time using it, so it makes sense.
Yeah, and I do think the powers that be are very. There's gonna be a feedback form going out for ACL in a couple of weeks, like there always is. But we will. So definitely make your voices known there, team affiliated folks. But I think they're definitely open to tweaking a few things, and I think this is very close to being one of the best tier 3 tournaments that we've ever had. Just with a little bit of extra tweaking, I think the format's very good.
Without a doubt. But yeah, talking about it's kind of hard to talk about future 3-2 matchups and 2-3 matchups because there's a lot of stuff up in the air. Yeah, with that series that we'll be playing tomorrow.
I think that's a close series too. I think that's
for sure is.
It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's heat because it's like whoever loses this is in such a bad position. Excuse me. At 2 and 3. Yeah, it's gonna be rough. I think these are both good teams.
Yeah, I would say minimum 3 games between those two. So we'll come back to that, and I will now steal Gordo's job. Talk about the 1-3 matchups.
Go for
it. We can see who avoided elimination and who we said goodbye to. Novosphere Gaming Myth dropped 2-1 to Deathmark Esport. The Chain Vests 2-0 out. Tempest Gaming JLH. Sayonara. Cal Golden Bears. Shout out their mid laner. Shout out their mid laner, who I found out was one of my brother's childhood best friends. Had no clue. Shout out Fights. They stay alive. 2-0 win over Zero Animosity, and then Dorado Gaming 2-0 High Alert. Really high, really intense games, right? Just elimination games, and
I mean, RIP to Zero Animosity, man.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I remember you hyping them up a little bit for them to be eliminated.
Oh yeah, you weren't on cast week 1, right? TDS, it was somebody else.
No, yeah, I was able to be on cast on week 1.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I just remember talking to RetroZing after that series, and they were kind of riding high. They were they had a really good showing against another team that we thought was good, but a team that got eliminated last week in Novosphere.
Yeah.
So a team that literally finished bottom 2 in Novosphere. Turns out that wasn't actually a big accomplishment for Zero Animosity. And yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a shame. They were really putting in the work. It felt like they had they seemed to be improving from the previous OQ, but I guess a lot of 3-game series and just not quite being able to put it together. So, I mean, shout out Zero Animosity. I've been impressed with some of the stuff I've gotten to see from these individual players, but just not their ACL run, and they are done for the split now.
Yeah.
Shout out the Golden Bears. Get that 2-1 win. Yeah. Now they're locked. Well, we'll see what the 2-3 looks like. It seems like they could draw either Supernova Dark Matter or they're playing the Chain Vests, which would be cool because I always like to see the 1-3 teams start to play each other and knock each other off. So, but it's gonna be fun to track a lot of these teams before week 6 because 1-3. If we see a 1-3 team make the playoffs, that's just such a fun run because you're playing 3 elimination series to get to that point.
Essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
real high pressure for them. That's a dog, right? TDS?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
cool.
just
I just want to make
barking
sure that
seriously
nobody's
loud.
yeah, we're not collecting evidence or anything here.
Fuck.
Right.
Just a
God damn
pup.
it.
Just a pup, dude. All right. Well, this has been a jam. I think that'll about do it for this episode. We're at about 2.5 hours now.
Wowza.
Talked about
Yep.
plenty.
Close enough.
I love it. I love a nice long all-star teams list. I'm gonna take a lot of time piecing this together tomorrow. Hopefully got some new folks in on the show this week. We got the Dardock episode last week was our best performing episode ever so far. So shout out everybody who tuned in on that. Was a great time talking to old Dardock there, and hope to do more player stuff in the future. It's just all about picking the right player, right? Not everybody wants to talk for an hour, but you can find one that does. Those are always a bunch of fun. Maybe we'll bring in an episode, a guest next week. So stay tuned for that. We'll be chatting about playoffs, but that will do it for this week. It's been a banger of a season. Let us know if you agree with our all-star teams, what your all-star teams would have been, and we will see you guys on ACL this weekend. We'll see you guys in the NACL streams later this week, and we will see you guys for next week's episode next week. Till then, take it easy.